Oh.
Live to the world. Hello, Internet.
Aw, it's Jamil's birthday. Somebody that I used to work with at Target that I never got along with, but somehow we became Facebook friends.
Well, that was live.
What?
To the air. Live to the world.
Yeah, there's no way that Jamil actually like watches the show.
Is he dead?
Or anyone that I know that knows Jamil would tell Jamil.
Them.
He knows darn well that we don't get along. Like,
Gotcha.
we never got along.
He knows.
One of our first interactions was when he moved from overnights to days, and he asked to speak to me, and he was trying to reprimand me about something, and I was like, well, that's cool, except I've worked in this section since it started, and so pretty sure it's more like this, and he didn't like that answer because he was a manager and I wasn't.
Nice.
And so we've never really gotten along. Ben actually for a really long time thought that I had trouble with leadership, and I told him it was just him.
Is that like the part in Parks and Rec?
I still
when
think
Ron
that.
Swanson.
It's just you, Ben.
Was it like?
I just have problems with you.
Mm-hmm. And Jamil.
Okay, Jamil though. Jamil was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not my fault.
I can cite more examples if you want.
Hey, the current situation is not the same situation.
I don't know. It seems like lots of the exact same thing happening over and over and over again. Just saying.
Also, you're not my manager.
Yeah, whatever.
So was it like a situation where, like in that Parks and Rec episode, when Ron Swanson's walking through Lowe's, and one of the employees comes up to him and is like, "So, you working on a project or something?" And Ron just like looks at him straight in the face and goes, "I know more than you."
No, although I should have.
It's like me when I go to museums.
Yes. Yes. We are live, and Jamil, not spelled exactly like that, is somebody who I used to work with at Target.
Target.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Internet.
You and I really need to coordinate better. I can't believe we're wearing basically the same color on the same day.
Although, you know. Yeah.
Ghost World, I read that as, is Tim Dodd today? You said, is Tim Dodd on today?
Tim Dodd is every day.
Tim Dodd is every day.
It's in the name.
His recent NASA and SpaceX videos have been really good.
No, he's every day.
Tim Dodd is every day.
Every day is today.
Right, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, so he is every day.
Sorry, I'm going to be doing a lot of that today.
That's going to be amazing. Vogan asked me to delete Facebook. I'm working on it. I only have Facebook on my phone right now. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I'm working on that too.
And I don't know what new person Paul Harlow? No, sorry, that's Smokey Durg says. No, yeah, Smokey Durg.
Oh, damn it.
Unless you mean that Ben is a new person, in which case that's hilarious.
that's
I think you're talking about
That's true.
right here.
I know.
So you'll meet him later.
How stupid do you all think I
muley-like
am, actually?
He's invisible.
Like, should we just can we just take a poll really quick?
No, I'm sorry.
Snap poll.
That's not what I meant.
Who is it?
That's the guy.
I got up to watch the Insight launch, but I didn't go up to Vandenberg because the weather reports were saying that it was going to be 1/2 mile visibility.
Right, it was super foggy.
And I was like, forget that. And then, like, looking at the actual footage from the launch too, like, it was maybe like 1/8 mile at best. Like, I'm thinking it was more like...
Dude, the cameras could barely see the rocket on the pad.
I was thinking it was more like maybe 100 meters of visibility. Also, that sucks, because I've gone to see I've gone to hear 2 rockets launch out of Vandenberg, which really sucks. And also, driving through that at night on the rural roads out there would be very sketchy.
Not fun.
And I really didn't want to do that. Also, I felt like crap yesterday because the weather has changed here in LA. So, but I went outside, and both of my parents got up and went out and watched it with me, and I watched my first rocket launch ever from the comfort of my own home. And that was amazing, because I cannot believe how fast it was going across the sky. That was ridiculous. Holy moly.
Go ahead and answer that manually. Yeah, there you go.
Do I still need to add in my stuff for the space pod?
You can't.
I can't?
No, script's locked down.
Okay. Cool.
So whatever you put in there, that's what you're working with.
Okay. Nice.
This one.
Is that like is that a feature?
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't that neat?
That's pretty
I
neat.
go here. I'm going to be shooting off. So it needs to come backwards.
No, Twicket, I wasn't wondering, but thanks. And plus, that was inserted directly into my ear. So there's that. Everyone's going to go back and try and figure out what Twicket's talking about. William Hostman, I appreciate you saying that I'm occasionally charmingly clueless. I'm glad you still think it's charming.
Is that a compliment?
No, I directly asked if people thought I was stupid.
Oh.
So that was a welcome compliment. Although I realized that like literally nobody else decided to touch that one with the 10-foot pole. So 2 points to William Hostman for even trying to breach that topic. AlleyCat1979 on Twitch has AOS.
Thanks, Alley Cat.
Thanks.
I thought that was just their password.
It very well might be, in which case they should probably change it now.
Got it.
Is that like, is the J silent? Is that Issa AOS? Vogan, to be fair, I was drugged at the time.
We talking about our marriage?
See? He knows.
I know.
Excellent. Wow.
What, you
that
think
was
she's joking?
fantastic.
Everyone always thinks that I'm joking.
That's well rehearsed. That's years. Years.
No, I was on drugs at the time. It's a perfectly legit statement.
So Ben, I think I hung up on Mike. What button am I supposed to push to answer that?
The green one?
The answer
There
one.
is no green one.
When he dials in, there should be a green
No,
one.
there's one that's red and there's one that's red and green next to each other, and it
Well,
says
is-
leave and.
Yeah, he should be dialing into the hologram channel.
Yeah.
Is he not? So it shouldn't actually ring.
Well, it rings.
All right, what's he saying in Discord?
Nothing. I said try again, and I got
Okay.
nothing.
He's having issues.
Sorry.
And the tune you were singing is vaguely familiar to me.
Yeah, it's the Monkeys.
Hey, hey, we're the monkeys.
It's not that particular song, but yes.
Say we monkey around.
It's yes.
They are a very like underrated, underappreciated band.
Well, because they
you know?
were the first Spice Girls, right? So like they were the first
That's true.
like
They were the first Spice Girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
they were like the first like parody, like let's just throw some good-looking boys together and hope something comes about because the Beatles were so popular. And they did some good stuff. They did some really decent stuff for sure.
Turns out there was talent.
Yes.
So
TV needs to move towards center.
TV band.
Unlike the Spice Girls.
Benny,
Yeah.
TV needs to move towards center.
All right.
Because it. Oh, wait a minute. Michael Clark is inviting you to a meeting.
What? No, he needs to dial in. Tell him to, in Discord, tell him to dial the host link. Use the host's link. Same one from last week, same one every week. Wrong chair.
Wow, those are some beautiful photos from Hawaii.
Of the Burn-A-Nation,
Well, I mean,
like right where Lisa had basically just been.
well, basically,
Like,
if-
if you need like more reasons for Lisa to not be there right now, I just don't even know what that is.
I gotta say, like,
Lisa, if you were looking for a sign, man,
Right?
It always reminds me of like people who build their houses on the side of cliffs,
Right.
and then like the cliff collapses,
Or in
and they're like,
California
I
at all.
can't believe that this happened. You
Dude,
know.
totes.
Well,
Also, in case anybody cares, there's an interesting podcast that talks about the high seas analog Mars mission. It was mission 4, I believe. It's like a 6 or 7 episode podcast. Really interesting. At least I thought it was.
that sounds really cool.
Yeah. Travis Neal, did you just incorrectly identify Daydream Believer as Sleepy Jean? Or did you have a crush on someone named Sleepy Jean? I'm so confused right now.
What's he say? Yeah, so tell him it's the link from same link from last week.
Yeah, The Habitat is the name of the podcast. Thank you, Stoge.
Do you have the link? Go to the calendar, just paste it in there. PM it to him.
Yeah, literally. Stoge walked past that.
Oh yeah, well I mean I don't doubt that.
Oh, there
so-
we go. He's in.
Yay.
There he is.
There you go.
Stand up,
Hey,
young
Mike.
man.
Like you're so tiny.
Rise.
Okay. To be adjusted quite a bit.
Oh, look. Ben and Mike are twinsies.
Look at that.
Oh yeah, look at that. Hang on.
Twinsies.
Here, let me get out of the way.
Yeah,
No, let
just
me
like
stand-
Jared
let
and
me stand
I.
there. Hang on.
Jared
You
and I.
get-
No, not moving.
There we go.
Although
Excellent.
he's more vibrant than I am.
That's an understatement.
All right, so I'm losing him in the.
Not
That
sure
is
about
the
that.
Vizio. Do I have a Vizio remote, or do I have to do it all from the thing? I feel like I have a remote.
Should be a remote.
Sir Game-A-Lot, I didn't mean to. What did I do? Are you on a are you on a monkey's kick now? I can sing some of the Hollies if you like. Lur, I apologize.
Right
I'm a
here.
little hopped up on caffeine. Oh yeah, that one? It's
Oh,
right there.
Right.
That's where I
wanted
always
to
keep
put
it.
something in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, could you stand up for a second? Is that where you're gonna be?
Give or take.
Is the door closed?
Yes.
Downstairs, I don't know.
Jared, did you close the door when you came in?
I did.
Close all the way?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, the guy's just standing right next to it, so
That's probably right.
he's blowing everything out. So
Hey, is that my landscaper?
go get him, Mike. Mike, smash.
All right.
Greeting from the Isle of Man.
Oh, hey, they really want to do rocket stuff, and that
Hello.
never really happened.
If
Yeah,
only
you
I
guys-
could say that YouTube name.
Here, I'm gonna. You guys have a really cool motorcycle race. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah.
Yodiko.
I'm the one in the way.
Yodiko Okadoi?
Let's start this thing.
Okay. Welcome to the conversation. My name is Carrie Ann, and I'll be your host in this first segment of the show. I have with me old school. I've got Jared, our resident astronomer. I also have Mike, our rocket specialist, and I've got Adana behind us who will be producing the show. I also have a HAL 9000, but just ignore that for a moment.
Yeah.
Now, today in news.
Guess what? There's a survivor out there.
Oh, that's disturbing. And Mike?
Well, NASA is canceling a lunar rover in favor of commercial landers.
Interesting. We also have a pop-up roundtable discussion. You guys are really going to like that. And then in our third segment, we take a look back at your comments and questions about last week's show. But this is tomorrow, Orbit 11.18.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky? Stand by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ready?
What?
All right.
What?
We're recording now, so we have to go back.
Copy.
All right.
Oops.
Cool.
I didn't hear him whisper that into my headphones.
Oh, sorry. Welcome to The Conversation. I am Carrie Ann, and I will be your host in this first segment of the show. I have with me, old school, I've got Jared, our... No, apparently I can't do this. One more
Take
time.
your time. Take your time.
Oh, Jared, our rocket specialist.
That's Mike.
Yep, I know. Hence the problem. Welcome to The Conversation. My name is Carrie Ann, and I will be your host in this first segment of the show. I have with me today Jared, our resident astronomer. I also have a Mike, our rocket specialist. And I, of course, have a Detta behind us who will be producing the show. Just pay no attention to the red shirt. Now, today in news, we have...
We've got a survivor out there.
Oh, scary. And Mike?
Well, NASA is canceling a lunar rover in favor of commercial landers.
Interesting. We also have a fantastic roundtable discussion coming up for you, secondly. And then on our third segment, we take a look back at your questions and comments about last week's show. But this is tomorrow, Orbit 11.18.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Now, what we'd like to do at the top of each segment is take a moment to thank all of our citizens of tomorrow. These are the Escape Velocity citizens. They have contributed $10 or more per episode on Patreon.com. They, of course, get their name in the show, all three segments. They get the show, I suppose, as well. They get access to our exclusive citizen-only hangouts and honestly so very much more. I don't want to take up more time on that, but I want to make sure that, like I said, I give a huge thank you to every single one of them. If you are interested in becoming a citizen of tomorrow and help building the future, as it were, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Now, Mr. Mike, the next thing we'd like to do is talk about launches. And I wanted to give you a little bit of crap about this first one because, I suppose it's a test launch, so it still counts, right? Because I don't know, how, does that go into the launch count overall? Like, do we have test launches as its own separate category?
I mean, it went into space, but technically it was a suborbital launch. So normally we would do something like this, I guess, as a news story. But I mean,
I'll allow it. It's fine.
It went all the way to space, so I figured it's okay.
All right, perfect. So
what are we talking about?
Fill everybody in. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, we're talking about the New Shepard booster, which is a privately developed rocket booster developed by Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin, which lifted off last Sunday and came for a short, quick hop, and its capsule carried several instruments and came down for a nice landing after a short flight. So, yeah, let's check it out.
4, command engine start, 2, 1.
This launch occurred at 17:06 Coordinated Universal Time on Sunday, April 29th from Blue Origin's West Texas test site. This was the second flight of this particular booster and capsule with Windows and was the 8th test flight of the New Shepard vehicle overall. Now, a live webcast of the test flight provided by Blue Origin showed that the vehicles coasted to an apogee of roughly 35,100 feet or about 107 kilometers around 4 minutes into the mission. The rocket achieved a top speed of around 2,200 miles per hour or 3,540 kilometers per hour, according to the data released by Blue Origin. And the two vehicles made their descents, and the New Shepard booster fell back through the atmosphere, deployed an air brake, and reignited its engine for a nice landing. Awesome. Whew. Awesome, awesome. Now, Ariane Cornell, who hosted Blue Origin's launch webcast and did a fantastic job, by the way, said engineers intended to push the envelope of New Shepard's capabilities and aim to reach a higher altitude of 35,000 feet or 25,000 feet higher than its normal launch trajectory. Now, like the last test flight, a dummy named Mannequin Skywalker was strapped inside the crew capsule to simulate conditions. And there was also some experiments on board, including payloads from NASA, a small commercial communications firm, as well as the German Space Agency.
What a beautiful mission down here in West Texas. Woo! Congratulations to the Blue Origin team. Another spectacular test mission. It looks nominal from here. There is the...
Yep, and that sums it up nicely. Another successful mission. And hopefully the company will be ready to start flying people on board this for suborbital tourist flights by the end of the year, although they haven't said how many more test flights they're going to conduct or whether or not they really will start launching people by the end of this year. Haven't even announced any sort of ticket prices or how that's going to go. So looking forward to, though, when it does start becoming operational and start flying people into space. That's going to be amazing.
It's funny, you mentioned the windows specifically. Those windows are huge. Like, they're this big. They're gigantic. Yeah. So the views that you're going to get off of those is just going to be absolutely incredible. I mean, the views anyway, even if you have a tiny little porthole, would be incredible. But, like, these windows are bigger than what I have in my car.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, you think the windows on a Dreamliner are big.
Right.
Wait till you get in this thing.
Pretty much.
Holy moly.
What a golden age of spaceflight. I love it.
Everyone gets a window seat, too. That's the best part.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. That is very, very cool. All right, so so on to other launches.
Other launches?
Yeah, go ahead, hit me. What else happened this last week?
So we had a Chinese-built communications satellite which launched on Thursday. It's owned by a Hong Kong-based company, and it launched aboard a Long March 3B rocket.
Oh, awesome.
This launch occurred at 16:06 Coordinated Universal Time on Thursday, May 3rd, from the Xichang Space Center in southwest China. And the payload was the Apstar 6C satellite, which deployed from the Long March 3B's third stage less than a half hour after liftoff. Now, the spacecraft's own propulsion system is going to eventually circularize its orbit at a geostationary altitude in the coming weeks. And the Apstar 6C is going to enter service and have a 15-year mission providing in-flight connectivity for airliners, video distribution services, satellite TV, and a whole bunch of services across China, Mongolia, and Southeast Asia. Now, the spacecraft was built by the Chinese Academy of Space Technology, and Thursday's flight was actually the 13th flight for China this year and the 41st flight overall. And with this, with another launch that we'll talk about in a second, China and the United States are actually tied right now for 13 launches apiece. Although in the United States, 8 of those launches were from SpaceX alone. So that's there's your orbital launch update for the year.
Nice.
So see, now if they just inverted, of course, only in English, I suppose. But if China, the Academy of Space Technology, if they just said China Academy of Technology of Space, we could have cats.
Cats in space, yep.
Right.
I suppose we could.
Like, I feel like that was a missed opportunity, but again, only in English, so I apologize for that. But I got really excited about that for a second. I was like, wait, what did you say? Oh, not quite. Okay, so then there was this beautiful Atlas launch as well inside that, you know, maybe some of us saw, some of us were sleeping, Stoge. So why don't you go ahead and tell me about the InSight launch?
Yeah, so NASA's InSight spacecraft launched just early this morning on an Atlas V rocket and was launching out of California from Vandenberg Air Force Base.
5, 4, 3, 2, 0. And liftoff of the Atlas V, launching the first interplanetary mission from the West Coast. And NASA's InSight, the first outer space robotic explorer to study the interior of Mars.
Now, this launch occurred at 11:05 Coordinated Universal Time on today, May 5th, and was the first interplanetary launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base, as the announcer said. And the rocket used was the Atlas V in the 401 configuration, which means it had a 4-meter payload fairing, no solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. Now, the flight proceeded as planned, and the Centaur upper stage burned twice to place the InSight lander into its Mars transfer orbit. And InSight's arrival at Mars is supposed to occur on Monday, November 26th, 2018. So when the robot is going to plunge into the Martian atmosphere using a combination of supersonic parachute and braking rockets to touch down with the aid of some shock-absorbing landing legs and Elysium Planitia, they're going to do quite some interesting science. Once on the Martian surface, InSight's going to unfurl its solar arrays and place 2 instruments on the ground using a robotic arm to listen for tremors and measure the heat flow coming from the planet's superheated interior. Now, along with InSight are 2 6-unit or rather briefcase-sized CubeSats called the Twin Mars Cube 1 or MARCO spacecraft. And they will become the first CubeSats to travel into interplanetary space and are going to provide a radio relay capability to beam telemetry from InSight directly to Earth as the lander drops into the Martian atmosphere. However, InSight does not need the MARCO CubeSats to make a safe landing. The entry, descent, and landing maneuvers will be pre-programmed into InSight's onboard computer, and they'll be able to hopefully have another moment of terror, make or break arrival at Mars in November. Now, designers based the InSight lander on NASA's Phoenix probe, which launched in August of 2007 and touched down in the northern polar plains of Mars in May of 2008. And even though it had some really cold temperatures and diminishing solar power, it lasted for quite a bit longer than planned. So hopefully, engineers are hoping with the InSight lander that it will last up to 2 years and potentially even longer than that. So hopefully everything goes well during its journey to Mars and the landing is successful. I guess we'll just have to find out in November. Either way, this was an awesome launch.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And so, Jared, you normally
What
go
did you
up.
see? Yes.
Yeah, so usually I go up to Vandenberg, and I've seen 15, heard 2
Right.
Launches up at Vandenberg. But I was looking at the weather reports that were coming in, and it was basically going to be fogged out. And as you could see, they were having problems seeing the rocket with the cameras on the pad.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends that went up there ended up saying, yeah, the clouds got bright and it got really loud, but that was all they saw. So I stayed home and I watched it from my front yard. And this is my first time actually watching a rocket launch from back here in Los Angeles.
Awesome.
So it was really, really cool. And holy moly, that thing was moving fast across the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you're at Vandenberg, you're kind of looking at it straight on as it's moving away from you.
So it's just
you don't really
get smaller and smaller and smaller.
It just gets smaller and smaller. You don't really get a sense of speed out of it. But because this was hugging the coast, you could see it, and dang,
yeah,
that moves really fast.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
It was literally moving like 6 degrees a second across the sky, which just to give you an idea, that's about 12 full moons per second across the sky. So this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see it.
I know that tomorrow's close personal friend, Tori Bruno, was just in a total tweet storm about it this morning, which was awesome. It's nice to see him so engaged. That's really
And I have
cool.
a video up on my Twitter account. I threw it up there. I took a video from like 30 seconds to first stage cutoff to cutoff. So if you want to see it, you can see me looking through the trees. So.
That's really, really cool. That's neat. I know I should be able to put some sort of Marco Polo joke in here, but I couldn't quite figure it out. So just pretend I was funny. So then, thank you.
I'm guessing Polo is back here at Earth. I'm guessing.
Yeah, right? Oh, this is why I love you guys. So, Mr. Jared.
Yeah.
You're talking about a survivor.
Yeah.
And yet the first word in this title is Hubble. I'm confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we had to use Hubble to spot this survivor.
Gotcha.
So, just like if you're sending out an SOS, like the police song.
I'm stuck there.
I was trying to figure out how to pull a lyric from it and make it work, and it just didn't work.
Again, pretend he was funny.
And I did it in front of you all live and to air now, so this will be fun when you watch it again. But a supernova actually went off in 2001. And we went to go take a look at it again because we actually studied it in really great detail over a couple of years. And it's actually confirmed something that we've suspected about supernovae, but haven't had like the actual data to actually confirm it. So we had to look at this beautiful galaxy called NGC 7424. Now, it's a barred spiral galaxy. It's about 37.5 million light years away from us. And we actually study 7424 in quite a lot of detail because it's about the same size and the same structure as the Milky Way. So not exactly what the Milky Way would look like, but pretty darn close to what it would actually look like. Now, this is a specific type of supernova known as a Type 2, which is the rapid collapse of a massive star, something, 8 times the mass of our own sun, with an upper limit somewhere on the order of 40 to 50 times the mass of our own sun.
As you do.
Yes, and we can even go further with this, and this supernova known as 2001 IG, we can call it a Type 2b, which is quite unusual since that means most of the hydrogen that the star uses to perform nuclear fusion is gone before the explosion. Now, they were thought to have come from stars with stellar winds that are fast enough that their outer envelopes are pushed off, but observing these stars, doing this has proved to be a near impossible task, so speculation began to favor these low-mass stars being in binary systems with these massive stars, so little itty-bitty stars going around these massive stars, so they began to hunt for them. Now, you can imagine this is like really not easy, attempting to find a very low-mass star inside the remnants of a supernova, but with instruments like Hubble and a close-by supernova of the Type 2b variety, they could make it happen. Now, just to give some context for what this image is here, on the left there, you have the supernova as it was imaged in 2001, and then on the right there, you have the supernova as it was imaged in 2016. So obviously, the amount of light and energy coming from it has dropped off significantly. So shortly after this supernova explosion, the observations were made by the European Southern Observatory's very large telescope in Chile, which you'll see in that first box on the left right there. And they were sort of figuring out where precisely that supernova was at. And then in 2004, the Gemini South Observatory, also in Chile, looked at that same area as well, which is the middle box right there. And then with those two observations, they figured out precisely where that supernova occurred at. So back in 2016, they pulled out Hubble. They got some time on it. They looked in even closer, which you could see that right box there. That's what Hubble saw, but it's even smaller bit of those big boxes. They looked in there and they found a stellar companion in the remnants. That means that it likely pulled the material, that hydrogen, off of the star, causing it instead of the stellar winds. Now, this is super important because most stars, they form in binary pairs. Our sun is a singular star, actually a really rare thing in the universe. So Hubble also did look at some other supernovas that occurred in this variety, but they only got spectra, so they only got the breakup of the light and what it was made of. They didn't get the actual observation like we have with this data that we got here. So fantastic study from Hubble using old data and going back and revisiting and kind of planning a decade ahead. So,
interesting. Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
That's really cool. I learned something today. All right, Mr. Mike. So we're talking about NASA canceling something, which is usually very upsetting, but this actually sounds like it might have a happy ending. What's going on?
Yeah, and I mean, there are quite a few people that are upset about it, but I personally think that it might have a happy ending to it. What we're talking about is that NASA, even though they've changed direction recently to send astronauts back to the surface of the moon, an upcoming mission called the Resource Prospector rover has been canceled. They canceled that recently, and what it was going to do was to go to the moon to study resources, especially in the polar regions, to check out to see if there was enough water and helium that could potentially be used for future human explorations. Now, officials at the Space Agency headquarters in Washington on April 23rd directed managers of the Resource Prospector mission to end development of the lunar rover by the end of May this month. But NASA said in a statement last Friday that selected instruments that were to fly to the moon on the Resource Prospector mission will continue their development for delivery to the lunar surface on commercial landers. So the Resource Prospector would have carried instruments to search for subsurface hydrogen on the moon, an indicator of water or water-bearing minerals, and a drill to exact samples from a depth of 1 meter. And sensors aboard the rover would have analyzed the underground material heated in an onboard oven to search of water and other potential resources, including helium, methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfate, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, all the stuff that we need to make all of our space ambitions happen. And the planned rover would have prospected the moon's polar regions, as I said, for resources. And they potentially were hoping to have like a way to refine oxygen or even into drinking water or rocket propellant at some sort of lunar base. Now, NASA's canceled the Resource Prospector mission as the Trump administration redirected the space agency to return humans to the lunar surface. And quite a few scientists saw the Resource Prospector mission as a forerunner to this new direction of sending crewed lunar missions. But as I said, NASA plans to partner with commercial companies and international space agencies for other robotic precursor missions. So in a brief statement, NASA said a draft proposal, or rather a draft request for proposals, will help to formulate a lunar exploration strategy. The Resource Prospector mission was planned to launch as soon as 2022, but the project never really advanced beyond the early design and development stages. Engineers built a ground prototype for the rover to test remote operation concepts, and representatives from companies interested in bidding for a NASA Lunar Payload Services contract are going to be offering feedback to the space agency before the release of final requests for proposals as to how those surviving instruments that they want to continue development on will be able to eventually go to the moon. There's several U.S. companies that are in various stages of designing and developing their own lunar landers, including Astrobotic, Blue Origin, Moon Express. So there's a couple of options here. And Thomas Zubreckin, who's the head of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said that the agency plans to fly payloads to the moon as soon as 2019 or 2020 aboard some of these commercial spacecraft. The early payloads will likely be really small and lightweight because of the limited capacity on the first commercial landers. And although there are many scientists who are upset about this in the lunar community, the promise of flying those instruments meant for Resource Prospector is probably still going to collect a lot of really good science from the polar regions. And considering some of the capabilities that these commercial landers have that are in development, this could provide more business to the American Google Lunar X Prize teams and accomplish the original goals of the Resource Prospector, and who knows, maybe even using a commercial rover to do it.
Interesting. Gosh, if only there was a roundtable coming up that would talk about other things that maybe the government should hand over to commercial sector in the next segment, then we could talk about that a little bit more in detail. So the good food for thought, Mike, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just an appetizer.
Right, exactly. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head into a break. And when we come back, we are going to maybe totally talk about like other things that we think that possibly the government should hand over to the commercial sector to, you know, for better development and all that other fun stuff, or maybe just joint things. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting topic, I think. Yeah. So stay with us. There's more tomorrow coming right up.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. This girl's a fascination, and nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, through the heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking to be free.
And tomorrow returns. Now, before we get into comments, before we get into our main roundtable, well, I suppose before comments as well.
I mean, it's still before comments. Wow.
Everything I didn't have to bail for that. No, edit points are for urgent-only things. Yeah, now I need a moment.
Want me to sing the song?
Nope. Is it the camera making the noise, or is it coming from outside?
It could be the fan. It could be a lot of things. I don't know.
And tomorrow continues. Now, before we get into our main roundtable discussion, I did want to give a huge thank you to all of the citizens of tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who've contributed $10 or more to this specific episode. We also have our orbital citizens who've contributed $5 or more to this specific episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Now, I know we have a topic coming up where we're going to be talking about like what we can hand over. It's going to be pretty cool, talking a little bit about money. I do want to take just a really quick PSA for tomorrow. Well, it's not really, it's PSA, which is, we'd split off to Maker Support, so you could support the show monthly on Maker Support or per episode on Patreon, and that came from us not really liking what Patreon was doing. They weren't really communicating. They still are not communicating with their creators. A series of events kind of led to us going, not super comfortable just with Patreon. So we looked for other services. We found make.com, tried them for a little bit. It didn't really work, so we moved over to Maker Support. Unfortunately, there are some shenanigans, it appears, going on at Maker Support. I don't have a whole picture just yet, but I'm also not comfortable there, and all communication on Maker Support has basically been shut down entirely. So we are no longer supporting Maker Support. Now, if you've contributed to the show on Maker Support through the rest of the month, you're going to continue, even if you don't get billed, you're going to continue to get all of the normal rewards that you would get for tomorrow. So if you want to support the show monetarily, we're just moving purely back to Patreon. I am looking at other options, including self-hosting, because this is just getting silly. I don't know what we're going to do yet. The short version is I want something where if you want to help the shows of tomorrow, somehow, you want to be a part of this in some way, you should be able to do that somehow, right? Maybe that's monetarily, maybe that's $1 per month or a penny per month, maybe that's more, maybe that's your time, maybe that's tweeting out the show. If you help us in some way, you should get rewarded. You're a citizen, you're contributing to the show. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to get to, what I'm trying to find. And frankly, there's just no single service out there that does all of that. I'm sorry that we're kind of moving around trying to get all this stuff going, but that's the vision. That's where I'm trying to get to. Hopefully we'll get there someday. So there you go. There's the quick little PSA as to what's going on. You'll notice it's been removed from our Maker Support's been removed from the website. It has been removed from all of our materials on everything else. And I do recommend that if you were contributing on Maker Support, go ahead and just pull that support, move it over to Patreon if you want, or just pull it entirely. Again, you will continue to get those rewards through the end of this month. And I'm truly sorry for all of the shenanigans that have gone into this. I know it sucks. If I could, I was hopeful. I thought they were going to be the replacement to Patreon. I really did, and they won't. Yeah, anyhow. Neuropilot, can we just PayPal you money? I need some way to track that. I want to make sure that if you contribute to the show, you get credit for that, right? You're part of the team. You again, whether it be money or time or talent or whatever you're contributing, for as little or as much as you want. You decide how much this show is of value to you, and you give back to it. That's what I think is fair, and that's what I think makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that we can honor your contribution, whatever that is. And so if you just PayPal us money, I don't have a good system on the back end to make sure that you get your name into the show. You're free to do that. I can't. It's really important to me that we all share this together, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to leave people behind because they chose, platform B as opposed to platform A. That doesn't make sense to me. So for now, no, but maybe someday. Ben Coin, Citizen Big Number, Ben Coin. Green Jim, actually Green Jim brings up another interesting point. What if we don't want credit? That is an option on Patreon. You can say no reward on Patreon. And that's legit too. Some people just want to contribute but don't want their name in the show. They don't want any credit. They just want to help. That should absolutely be an option for you as well. You should be able to do whatever you want to support the show however you want. But I want to make sure that if you want the credit, I think the default is you get credit up, like you get that credit, and then you opt out of getting credit if you contribute to the show. That's what makes sense to me. All subject to change as I learn and grow and find new things that make more sense. So I'm sorry, I took way too much time on that. Our main topic. Let's get into that because it is kind of an interesting topic, right? You look at aerospace, and for most of aerospace's history, at least for the space part of that, it's been governments, right? Governments designed and built the rockets that paid for these things. Private company came in and did components, at least in the U.S. But ultimately, space station, government project. Space Shuttle, government project. Saturn V, Soyuz, Ariane 5, government projects, all of this stuff. And then the private industry kind of came in and said, we can build rockets better, cheaper, faster, and they seem to be succeeding at that. We have multiple companies doing that. So launchers, we've proven we can do that with launchers. But that's the only thing we seem to have really done in aerospace. You talked about the James Webb Space Telescope, and you said, this isn't really something that private space should pick up just yet. It doesn't make sense financially. Right?
Yeah, because a private space company doesn't have any financial incentive to build their own large-scale infrared space-based telescope. I mean,
or do they? Because you're used to the data being totally free, but then
that kind of violates some of the ethics of what we want to do in science, because we at least try to not paywall data in the long run.
I feel like science paywalls a lot of data.
Your initial release, absolutely. That is your data. You have put in the effort to make that happen, but eventually you do release it out to everybody free of charge.
Why could that not be the same for a JWST type program?
The
initial data, you have to, you want to get access to the first dibs, you got to pay for it. I put that huge giant thing up there.
That's like bidding on on things, and that's not something that's happened in
but
science
just because
yet.
it hasn't happened doesn't. Creative financing can open up new markets, can it not?
It sure can. But it is also one of those things where
I feel you cringing at this idea.
Yeah,
you're
sure am.
like the hairs. You're like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I'm just.
Okay, but maybe it's not that, right? Maybe that's not the creative financing that makes sense.
Sure.
Maybe there's something else. But there could be a business model that actually does work.
Yeah,
question.
There absolutely could be. There could be a way to do it. Like I know Planetary Resources was talking about, looking around and trying to fund their own space telescopes via property rights to these asteroids that they find and things like that. And of course, I've seen some articles this week that are kind of things are occurring in that area, so I guess that was a bad example to bring up. But that is a possibility. That's one way that you could do it. But just a lot of the bleeding edge science stuff, I feel like private industry doesn't really want to do it outside of contracting to build the actual instrument, if you will. I know someone earlier in our chat room was saying that that SpaceX could build a Mars rover with instruments that are 100,000 times better than what you could do at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And I feel like if that were the case, that would already be happening, wouldn't it? And I don't
that
know.
Seems a little fanboyish.
That is a bit fanboyish, and I kind of wonder if even if that's going to happen, because that doesn't really fit in with some of the ideas and the drivers with some of these companies. A lot of these companies are more about large-scale off-world colonization as opposed to attempting to analyze a certain amount of regolith or bring a sample back to the Earth. And it just feels like at the moment things like that are not quite yet in the sphere of private spaceflight. Delivery of that stuff, oh yeah, let's do it. I would love to put a rover on top of a Falcon Heavy and launch it, because it's going to be cheaper. There's going to be a lot of payload mass that you could put on there as well.
And they almost did it already. Almost,
if you think about it. But one of the things is that when you save that money, especially on your launch vehicle, like in the case of Falcon Heavy, if it really does turn out to be like $90 million to send something to Mars, compared to something like an Atlas V 541, which is what we used for Curiosity and what they're going to use for Mars 2020, suddenly you've got $150 million to play with. And you can add on more instruments. You can maybe upmass something to maybe not make it as difficult to make that instrument. You could even add on more scientists to process that data even faster, or bring in scientists from different fields to look at the data differently as well when you initially get it back. So that does open up the realm of possibility. But in terms of like pure exploration and like actual scientific research and driving forward to push things, I feel like private spaceflight's not quite there yet.
Okay, so
I would love to see it in the future do something like that, because I love being proved wrong about things like this. But for now, NASA and its exploration should definitely be like the NACA, which was the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which was developed in the early 20th century as a means by which to get the United States sort of on par with everybody in aerospace research at that time, and then ended up being one of the leaders in it and basically did like pure aerospace research, and then was like, here's our data, and just threw it out to the private sector for them to use whatever they wanted.
So there's certain areas where it does make sense and it doesn't make sense. It's
Yes.
kind of, if I were to sum that up,
Yes.
right? It really doesn't make sense for these pure science, like very expensive, low yield. Go ahead, Mike.
The one example that I can think of, though, is the B612 Foundation, who is purely wanting to do a telescope for protection purposes, not even for profit, but just to have another spacecraft to look out for near-Earth asteroids and have another kind of part of the system of the protection of Earth. So there's one that wants to do it for just science purposes, but I can't really think of a whole lot of others.
All right, that's fair, and but they're nonprofit. You said, yeah. So that's a weird like third camp that I feel like, right? That like of the bins, you got government, and then you've got like commercial, like for profit, and then I feel like nonprofit goes into a third different bin. Because they are just it's a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and
not better or worse, just a different bin.
Yeah, and I mean, someone mentioned the Planetary Society in our chat room, and that's a really great example of space advocacy, not necessarily doing things. I mean, they are doing light sail, and that's a really cool project, but there's also a lot of companies that are actually looking at doing larger things than that. Not to like discount what they're doing.
No.
It's really cool that they're doing
but
that.
they're in that third bucket.
They're definitely.
It's a slightly different way of looking at it.
They're in like this really bizarre kind of, how would I describe it? Yeah, third bucket. It works.
So then, what are some things? We Stratty back in the chat room a little while ago said commercial satellites are also older than launches. So there have been aspects to this that have been commercial for quite some time, right? Satellites certainly one of them. A good swath of the satellites orbiting Earth right now are not military and not, certainly there are a lot of military satellites, but they're commercial satellites built by commercial companies for commercial purpose. So that's been there for quite some time. It's the launchers now that are moving over, but kind of extending that question then, okay, so there's certain things that do and don't work. What's the next thing that can maybe move away from government over into the commercial sector? What feels like the next natural extension of that?
If I may, I feel like the next natural extension is actually ground support. Like I feel like there is going to be a commercial deep space network, in the coming years that's going to have another capability to have, a backup for, NASA missions or for privately funded missions. Who knows? Of course, that all depends on the ambitions of different companies and whether or not there is a viable economy in these different destinations that we want to go to in space. So it's all kind of a little bit dependent on that, but I feel like that's a big one that will be at least added to by the commercial sector.
So ground support is an interesting concept. Do you think there will be ground support being, space to ground kind of things for your launchers and whatnot? A lot of these private space companies are building their own ground support systems today.
Yeah.
And that gets very, very expensive very quickly. Wouldn't it be cool if all these new launchers could just tap into this ground support network? But, when you look at some of that support system, there's also an air support system. NASA has the TDRS, the Tracking Data Relay Satellite System, with two S's. So TDRS is what they would use to send data up and then go around, and that way you always had communication with the vehicle. Do you see that as something as well, or is that much harder because of the size of the constellation that would be required?
I don't know. I mean, it all depends on the goals of a particular company. If they have a good enough incentive to have their own data relay tracking constellation, then sure, they will. And who knows, maybe even with SpaceX's Starlink system, they might have that added capability on some of them, but that's just me just throwing that out there. I haven't heard any rumors about anything like that, so who knows.
Well, TDRS is complicated, right? Because you got to deal with the Doppler effect and whatnot, things that normal satellites wouldn't have to necessarily deal with for upgoing, because you got an object moving past you very, very quickly, and you have to then compensate for that. So it's not like you've already got Starlink up there, just add it into Starlink. It has to be thought about and built in. So something to consider.
Yeah. Also, don't forget with TDRS, that's also part DoD as well. So there's that element that nobody really talks about with it. So.
That's good. You're not saying. And Ninja swooped down and removed Jared from the set.
So
DM Mart has an interesting question, which is the Gateway Foundation. Where do they fit in? The Gateway Foundation being with the that Gateway. You know, we need to bring them on the show. We actually haven't done that. Is everyone familiar with the Gateway space station concept?
Yes.
Not deep space gateway. Not deep space gateway. So deep space gateway being NASA's kind of what would you call that? Cislunar outpost almost. Whereas Gateway Foundation is more of a commercial space station with like a Babylon 5 docking collar, and then they kind of build it, right? I mean, that's what it looked like. And then they kind of build out on that, and you go to like a lunar ring on the inner ring section, and then outside of that you've got a, I forgot what they called the outer ring.
It had an interesting name, I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. So, you know, being able to build space stations, essentially, does that make sense to move into commercial space? Is that something that, is that like the next big thing? So, you know, ground support system, but what about space stations?
It sounds like even if we don't necessarily think that this is, I mean, Green Jim too in the chat room also said space stations. We actually
that's what I was going to say.
There you go. Which is kind of funny.
Bigelow.
Yeah, Bigelow,
So,
exactly.
Orion Span, actually, unfortunately, was going to be on the show this week. Issues last minute being rescheduled. So,
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, Orion Span,
that should
another
be really
example.
exciting to have them on
Well,
again.
and even CJ in the chat room says, in parenthetically, followed by tourism. I think if there are private space stations, that there is the possibility then for some private tourism. I think those sort of go hand in hand to a certain extent. Bigelow, we've talked about Bigelow a number of times. Bigelow Aerospace, for those of you who are not nearly as familiar, that have a module on the International Space Station, the expandable, this is where I need help. Mike?
Bigelow Expandable Activity Module.
Thank
or
you. Beam. You know, and it does not inflate, it expands on the International Space Station. Well, we went over that quite a number of times. Yes, thank you, Lur, in the chat room. Bigelow Expandable Activity Module. So I think even if we don't think that that's an area that private space, you know, should be doing or could be doing, it's happening anyway. There's not a whole lot we can do to stop that. At least I don't think. CJ also says mining and towards the private sector, which I think is really interesting because again, there are already companies that are trying to do that between planetary resources. It's like that's kind of their goal, at least in the long run. Golden Spike, assuming that that's still around, was kind of doing those sorts of things.
Wow.
Right? In a long time. I was just thinking about that the other day. But then Vogan says lunar landers, which has sparked a little bit of a debate in the chat room. Just so if you're not watching live or watching live in the chat room, definitely do that. Even if you're on YouTube or Twitch or what have you, because we're getting all of those things all here. And some interesting comments and questions concerning lunar landers going on in there. And with the Google Lunar X Prize, I think that kind of spurred on a lot of that, even though that's not exactly kind of going on. But to talk back to Mike's story earlier, you know, if that is something that that can happen, I think that would be a really great idea. It seems like the really nice thing about the private sector is that they have a tendency to be willing and able, or maybe not necessarily able, but willing and wanting to take on some of these projects that the government either deems unnecessary or we don't have the money for, or we don't have we just can't do for whatever reason, even if it's on a smaller scale, which I think is the exciting thing about the private sector taking up some of those things.
Yeah, and I feel like it's important for the private sector to do that because government is restricted in some of the things that it can do. I mean, it took a gamble on the space shuttle. And now, you know, now that the program's over, we sit here and we talk about how awful it was.
Right.
And, you know, it was such a bad decision. And, like, you know, a private company could have potentially have made that decision and nobody would have cared when it failed.
Right.
So, so private space doesn't allow certain things to happen that otherwise, if government did it, they would absolutely
I feel like we do more than
ripped.
just sit here and talk about how awful it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do talk, we're like, no, it is not the precious little program that y'all thought it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, we take a very realistic look at it. We take a very hard look at it and go,
yes, we do.
Well, it didn't really actually do what it was supposed to do.
Or even close.
I
mean,
I will always argue that Space Shuttle showed us how not to do that, and that was an important lesson as well.
Hey, actually, that is, as long as you learn.
Yes.
Do you think we learned, though? That's the question. Yeah, okay.
No.
Well, then.
No.
Great. That's great.
No.
So then.
Well, wait. Hold on a second. You said we. Do you think we learned? Define we.
Oh, just.
Do you think humans? Humanity?
Sure. We as in NASA is what you mean?
I guess, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
I think really it was the agency in which designed and built it in the first place. So yeah, NASA/DoD/everyone involved.
Go ahead, Mike.
Let's talk about United Launch Alliance for a second and their whole Cislunar 1000 plan, which they partnered up with Bigelow Aerospace and Maston Aerospace, and they're going to have the whole Zeus lander to be able to go to the surface. And assuming that there is enough water on the surface of the moon that could be mineable and refined into rocket fuel, that's their whole plan, is to be able to have refueling depots. And the whole goal of Cislunar 1000 is to have 1,000 people living and working in space. So that's a really cool goal, but it's not going to materialize unless the resources are there and they have the incentive and could make enough money off of that project to actually make that happen. But the ambition and the goal and the want to do that is there. And so I like that at the very least.
Yeah, and are they doing that privately? Like, are they using their own funds to make that happen, or are they waiting for the government to fund it? Yeah, so that's, that slams back.
And they're only in the study phase right now, but everything that they've been doing with like the Zeus lander and everything like that has all been privately funded by United Launch Alliance. So there hasn't been any government money, as far as I know, on that whole concept and that whole plan.
It seems like if they get a little further along on that, I feel like their Cislunar 1000 plan doesn't quite get enough attention, right? Because if they can pull that off, and
you and Mike agree. Go on.
Well, no, right? If they can pull that off, and if they're not pulling government funds to do it, if they're doing this themselves, that's a big deal. That's a humanity changer right there, right? I mean, that's going to allow us to live and work in space in a way, never like. One day would have more people in space than the rest of history combined.
Yeah.
Right? That would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible.
That's sort of like the O'Neillian ideal, really throwing as many people as you can to build an economy in space.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there are, how do I want to word this question? Instead of just being where does it make sense though for the commercial space industry to do this right now? Because we're talking about deep space industries and a golden spike and planetary resources and lunar landers and all these things. It's really easy to talk about these things, but a couple things to keep in mind. One, if you're too early, you're going to run out of funds and you're going to die. Right, we see this happen in new space and aerospace all the time. Yeah, just you're too early to market and you just die.
What was the company that flew the Conestoga rockets? I can't remember their name, but they did it in the 80s and 90s, and they were what is their name? Oh, I can't think of it, but they were a company that was trying to do low cost commercial space flight using these leftover ICBM solid rocket motors, and they just couldn't get it right, and nobody really wanted to touch it back in the 90s. So Deke Slayton was a part of it. I can't remember the name of the company.
The SSIA?
No, I don't remember.
Space Services.
Yeah, actually, I think SSIA may be it. But yeah, they were doing
Services Inc. of America.
Yeah,
I remembered I had a Google in front of me.
Yes.
Conestoga launch vehicle designed and funded by Space Services Incorporated of America, or SSIA, of Houston, Texas. Originally consisted of surplus LGM-30 Minutemen stages with additional strap-on boosters as required for larger payloads. Thank you, Wikipedia. I'll throw that in the chat room so you guys can read up on that.
The point is, being too early is bad as well.
Yes.
Are we in a position now where, because Beale Aerospace, right?
Yeah,
Beale was working on launchers as well.
They were way ahead of everybody.
Actually, the interesting story of how we got to here sort of begins with Beale, and we should take someday and do an extended space pod talking about Beale Aerospace and how they paved the way for COTS and CCDev and all of those other things.
Yeah.
Because it was really incredible. Anyhow, Beale was too early. Right? So are we in a position now where, we can talk about, let's build a commercial space station. Bigelow's working on that. Let's build a gateway. Let's build a lunar lander. Or all of these things too early by a decade. We need to just kind of press the brakes for a moment and kind of go, this still belongs in government territory for a little while.
You answered your question by the way that you started your question. You said that Beale Aerospace was sort of the forefounders of some of these things, right? And so then you end the question by saying, is it bad to be too early? It's not bad for the rest of us. It's only bad for Beale, no offense. It's like, but you see what I'm saying? Like, somebody has to be first, and somebody has to fail, and somebody has to learn those lessons, and then somebody has to pick up where somebody else left off or ran out of money, unfortunately, and continue on. So it can't be bad to be too early unless, you're the person who failed, I guess. But if you're looking in the grand scheme of things, you're looking at all of humanity. You're looking at all of tomorrow. You're welcome. It's difficult to say that those things were bad or that they failed. They didn't fail. They ran out of money. They you see what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
It's in the grand scheme of things that here we are now going, oh well, Beale is the one who laid the foundation. Fantastic. And now we are able to take that foundation and build upon it.
That's great when it works, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes
it's continuing to work. It's moving forward now. We're not done yet.
No,
we're not there yet. We're not at the goal yet.
But sometimes failure can be a stopping point too. Sometimes you fail and it causes the whole industry to come to an absolute halt. That can be very, very bad as well. So sometimes you, exactly like you said, you fail and then other people pick up those pieces and continue to forcefully move on. But I mean, you look at the launcher community, it's been a fight, right? Just because Beale, we're standing on the shoulders of NASA and Beale and everyone else, but there was a huge fight that was in there and has continued to happen. These companies will have to fight for their lives, and if they lose that fight, what happens at that point? Do we set ourselves back and then only allow government to take care of it because we were trying to be too early and too aggressive with commercializing some of these things? Question mark.
That's a good question. That's like a tough one.
2 points that relate to that, and Bigelow Aerospace is a great example. They almost have run the risk of being too early themselves, and they have stuck things out and had really long periods of intermittent inactivity and had to lay off most of their staff and then rehire people and then lay everybody off again and then rehire people. But they stuck it out. And the other point is that they built off of a canceled project. I mean, they built off of the TransHab technology that NASA developed and then canceled. So there's a good example in my mind of a canceled project, that's a government project starting off and then gets passed over to the commercial sector. Not even passed over, it was Bigelow, that, reached out and bought the intellectual property for that so that he would have the rights to it. But, there's two kind of examples of, a good way that a canceled project or especially a government project can be transferred over to the commercial sector, but also of that, they're still kind of running that risk of being too early for things. They've stuck it out, thankfully, but they could have shut their doors a long time ago.
A couple interesting comments from the chat room. Green Jim 2, or says, companies fighting for their lives. That's capitalism, isn't it? I mean, I guess so. Yeah. When it's working correctly, I guess. When it's not a monopoly, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how it should be. So. And then Citizen Big Number says, Carrie-Ann is right. Progress can be made through a series of bankruptcies. It can be more efficient than government. You might be able to look at Iridium as an example of that. Right?
Well, Iridium technically failed.
Right, so, that's an example of them going through bankruptcy. It failed, and now they've got a constellation that helps save lives.
Yeah, I was adding on to what you were saying.
I thought you were disagreeing. I'm like, no, that's why I brought it up.
It's toast.
No, I mean, they're still right. They're not a failure now. They're a success now, I would argue. But and that I think my final question I want to kind of ask on the flip side of this is, we're talking about commercial space as if it will only be a good thing. At least I've been kind of making that impression. But maybe it's not, right? When we look at some of the greatest things humans have done, commercial space has not sent humans to the moon. Commercial space has not built something larger than a Saturn V or an N1 rocket. Yet. Commercial space is still, yet. Well, that's fair, that's fair.
But that was it. Thank you, Dada, for that, by the way. That was, I was edging. I was waiting for you to stop talking so I could also say something along those lines. Who made the first airplane?
Well, that's kind of
government.
Contention.
Who made the first car? Government did that? Yeah. So when you're looking back in history, you can only have what we have so far.
Okay.
Right? And so, yeah, yet is exactly the key word in all of that. Saying
Who made the first rocket?
Sure, right?
Well, okay.
Depends on your definition of what a rocket is.
Absolutely.
Which is a totally different roundtable. Focus.
Someone in China.
That's a complicated question, actually.
But you understand what Donna and I at least are moving towards is that, you only have the last however many years to look at and judge upon and say that it hasn't happened. But it just hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It doesn't mean it can't happen.
No, but it doesn't mean it won't or can't happen, but it doesn't also mean that it's a good thing that it's good, right? It could also be bad, right? It could be good that the government takes some of these projects and just runs with it, right? I mean, I think using JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, as a example is a good example where government has some money and power and ability and weight to do something that commercial space probably would not be able to do.
Yeah, and I mean, someone put on the in the chat room said that the SpaceX Dragon uses a type of heat shield that was developed from the PICA heat shields that NASA developed. So that's an idea of hey, here's this technology that NASA's developed. A commercial provider gets to grab that free of charge because that's what NASA does. Whatever its research is, it throws it out to the commercial sector and lets it use it. Things like on the Dreamliner, those chevron shapes that quiet down the flow of air over its engine nacelles, that came from NASA. So, aerodynamic shapes of trucks, that came from NASA as well, from their studies that they did at Armstrong in the 1970s. So,
and I think that kind of comes to this point of Citizen 26379, which is space is big enough for government and private space. This doesn't need to be a battle between either or. I think what it will be is a slow transition from government taking on these very hard, very challenging things that only governments have resources for, at least right now, and then handing them off to private space. We're seeing that happen with the sole exception of the Space Launch System, which I do not understand why it exists as a program, but that's a whole different round.
I really feel like that we're starting to enter into an era that's sort of going to be like aerospace was from the 1920s to about the 1950s, which is you got the NACA and private companies working together to advance the technology of the day. That's kind of how I see things are going to start going. It's not necessarily going to be one leading the other, but it'll be government R&D feeding into some of the private companies, and then the private companies taking that R&D and then turning it into something a little more advanced for whatever purposes they need to. It's that public-private partnership that really ends up driving it forward and making it affordable and making it every day. And that's like super important, because it's not just old space, it's not just new space, it's got to be all space.
Is that the shirt for the show? That's the shirt for the show. It's not just old space, not just new space.
Sounds good.
Yep.
It's got to be all space.
Got to be all space. All right, so let's close out on this question for each of you, which is if you were to convert one program from government to commercial,
I hate when you do this.
What program would you do?
Does it have to be space related, or can it be under NASA's purview?
It's a great question.
Because NASA's not just all space. It's it's the first A. It's aerospace.
Exactly.
Aeronautics. So
it's your answer, man.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. The intention was space, but I'll allow it.
Okay, I'll do two then. All right. So my absolute dream program that I would love to see kind of taken and put into a commercial thing would be a quiet supersonic flight. Because dang, it takes a really long time to fly from like LA to New York. So I'd rather do that in 2 hours than like 6. So.
Or how about LA to Straya?
Yeah, that would be a lot nicer too. But I guess if I were to choose like an overall one, definitely low Earth orbit operations. I feel like we're maybe a decade away from private space actually being able to do that. So, and I feel like one of the options when the International Space Station is over is I don't feel like you should sink it in the drink. I feel like maybe NASA actually should look for a commercial company to take it over. You have your own. Here's your outpost. So, come and bid, everybody. So
ready to go.
I would love to see the commercial sector take over the International Space Station. That would be so awesome.
Yeah. Is that you? How about you, Space Mike? What's your answer?
Well, I would say that, but I want to find out for sure whether or not the rumored black budget secret space program is an actual thing or not, and what kind of crazy stuff they might have. So that would be something that I would just like to see come to light. Otherwise, I want to see the space station live out a very, very long life and be handed over to the private sector at some point.
All right, Carrie Ann?
I don't have one.
Really? Nothing that you would want to see?
That's why I hate when you do this stuff to me. I haven't researched enough, and I'm not familiar enough to be able to pick one and speak intelligently about it.
For me, I would actually like to see any of the lunar stuff that NASA is working on. I think that would be really cool to slide over to the commercial segment. Because it's like right on that cusp where it's still really hard, but it's still, I think, viable for commercial space to be able to do something with lunar, be it habitation, rovers, all of it. So basically the Altair lander, all that, pick up all that stuff that NASA was working on over there and drop it in the commercial sector.
See, I guess maybe I don't like the pretense of the question altogether. Maybe like I have a strong belief in the partnership of private and government. Like I just.
Well, yeah, there's still a partnership there, but much like.
But the idea of like, hey, I've been working on this project, it's yours now. Like that doesn't sit well with me in general.
But that's kind of what's been going on, right? So you look at like transport to the International Space Station. We had shuttle, we had. Well, no, we had shuttle.
Yeah, but those are all being done together. There's still a lot of NASA certification that has to be done. There's still a lot of like some of the first people who are going to fly, and those are going to be NASA astronauts. Like, so that's not just like, all right, cool, I'm done with this. It's yours now. It's, hey, I've done the bulk of this, and then we're going to do this together. You let me know when you have issue.
That's totally how this can go, though, right?
Yes, it is totally the way this can go. It is totally the way it is going, and in that way, then it doesn't. I guess the way you worded the question made it sound like. So it was just going to be handed over completely, and that makes me a little wary.
I think it'll be handed over much the same way that like commercial transit of cargo and commercial transit of crew to the space station was handed over. I think it'll be a very similar relationship with things like landing on Moon and Mars and all those other things. There's going to be a lot of data exchange and information exchange, and a lot of lessons learned from one side. I would argue that NASA is learning just as much from the commercial partners as commercial partners are learning from NASA. Right? NASA doesn't have the ability to move quickly with agility like the commercial programs have. But the commercial programs obviously do, and like there's a lot of red tape that NASA might be going, okay, well maybe that isn't actually necessary. Maybe we can do things that still make this program safe, but make it easier for rapid change and rapid improvements on platforms. So I think there's a two-way information exchange there that's happening, and I foresee that happening in the future as well. NASA and government's not the enemy. It's not like they're bad. They're doing great things. It's just a question of like, okay, well, what should they be working on now? Let's give them the really cool things. Instead of working on SLS, NASA should be working on next generation propulsion, things that we just do not have today. They shouldn't be rebuilding that's a whole different thing. Okay.
Well, NASA Eagle Works, it is a small office. They get a very small budget, but that is exactly what they do. But there should be a lot more of that.
They should take all of SLS's budget and drop it there, right? That's what should be happening.
Warp Drive next year.
Make NASA, so basically return NASA to the cutting edge kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
what I want too.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So I want to know what you guys think as well. What programs would you like to see commercialized? Actually, on the flip side of that, what programs do you think should stay with government? What are your thoughts on government versus commercial and kind of that transition point? Leave your comments anywhere you like. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TMRO.tv. We check all of them. And speaking of comments, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to have comments from last week's show. So stay tuned.
Science. It both draws us together and tears us apart. Brings discoveries to cure us and threaten us. It is neither good nor evil. It is what we decide to make of it. There is so much more to learn, and we are curious. Together, let's explore the science of tomorrow.
And don't forget, this is the first weekend of the month, which means that Tomorrow Science will be coming up next live right after this show. And then you'll be able to watch it on demand this coming Wednesday. And thank you to all of the people who make both Tomorrow Space and Tomorrow Science possible. These are Escape Velocity citizens. These are people who have contributed $10 or more for this specific episode. We also have our Orbital citizens. Those are people who've contributed $5 or more to this episode. And our Suborbital citizens, people who have contributed $2.50 or more to this episode. To find out how you can help craft crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. That's correct. I almost said .tv. All right, Capcom.
Yes.
Capcom. We had some. We had a. I would like to remind everyone of the rules of tomorrow. Remember to debate the idea and not the person. And last week we had Holly on the show, and the comments got we got right borderline on that stuff, and maybe slightly over the line. So just as a reminder, comments the idea, not the person. So
yes.
Capcom, take us away with what we've got.
So all these comments came off of YouTube, other than one slight rebuttal coming in a little bit later. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about later. This one comes from Raymond Heath. Says the launch count is becoming a thing, so Mike needs to start keeping track.
Yeah, Mike.
Which
Mike.
I was embarrassed last week that I did not know that off the top of my head.
Apologize.
So yeah, I updated my list and was able to give you a little update this week.
That's hilarious. I did warn you I was putting you on the spot, and I did realize that I was doing that, and I didn't intend to put you out of sorts. I just thought, well, you know what? I bet he's he's probably keeping track, knowing him. And then you're like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. But like I said, this show, like maybe we do need like a separate category just for test launches or test. I mean, I will let you decide on that. Honestly, that is your area. But I thought that was kind of funny. I know. I'm getting the look. Okay, never mind. I'll just keep quiet.
Wow, there's a comment in the chat room unrelated to anything that I absolutely want to answer right now, but I can't because it will derail the show. So continue.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you know what? We will talk about this in After Dark. It's from Space Danger, talking about the space shuttle and how space shuttle worked. So we will.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Okay, we'll save that for later.
Oh yeah, we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna loop around in After Dark in between the two shows. All right. Next
RTLS to that. Next one comes again, like I said, off of YouTube. This comes from Grungar von Drachen.
Sounds good to me.
Grungar von Drachen says Neptune and Uranus are referred to as ice giants by bad astronomer Phil Plait. And this comes off of Miss Sarah's story that we had last week. I almost said last year for some reason. Talking about how Uranus smells like farts. And that's right. That's the way I'm going to say it.
That's what it was
because
in the rundown.
Because that's the way you should say it.
That's what it was in the rundown.
When you're talking about farts. And so I did a little Google search and I found some things. And so, because I don't think that this person was trying to say that Sarah was wrong, because we were talking about ice giants versus gas giants specifically. And so I found this next slate here. Excuse me. This is the URL for the article in question, written April 23rd, 2018, and it says, quote, from Phil Plait himself, Uranus is one of the big outer planets in the solar system, sometimes called a gas giant, but usually referred to as an ice giant by planetary astronomers. It's not really frozen. The term ice refers to certain molecules in its interior, like ammonia, methane, and water.
Yeah.
So that's good. We all learned something new today.
And if we want to split hairs even further, we can call things ammonia, methane, and water volatiles.
Ooh.
So,
I
science.
like it.
I don't know what a planetary astronomer is. That is a mishmash of words that just does not make sense to me.
To be fair, he's also known as the bad astronomer, so I'm just going to give it to him on that one.
Yeah, because you're a planetary scientist if you study planets.
Right.
You're not really a planetary astronomer.
Okay.
Like you use telescopes and stuff. But there's like a very big, there's a like definitive distinction between planetary scientist and astronomer. And that's where the whole Pluto thing kind of got heated.
Right.
Was that astronomers were telling planetary scientists how things worked.
Gotcha.
So... Yeah.
And they were like,
oh! Yeah, they were basically like, oh, like Alan Stern said, if you have cancer, you don't go to a podiatrist. So,
I mean, unless it's cancer of the foot, I guess.
At the
end of the article,
I feel like we should have covered that better because that, like,
my tumor.
Oh yeah.
At the end of that article, Phil Plait also he had a little star on the way to pronounce said seventh planet in question. Incidentally, the name is Greek, so technically it should be Uranus.
That's right.
But that's not funny at all.
It's not.
Because it's not, honestly.
Uranus.
So there's that.
Do you guys know why?
Uranus.
Do you guys know why it was named that?
No, why?
Because Uranus is the Greek god personifying the sky. And Uranus was the first planet discovered with a telescope.
Ah.
So, there you go. So you learned something today.
Science twice!
So there
And
you go.
Why isn't it Latin? Oh, that's right. Anyway, next.
Uranus.
It's actually the
saying no
Roman,
robar.
the Greek name is Kronos. I actually like that name more. That was the previous name, Kronos. So.
For Saturn. That's for Saturn. So.
Oh, you're right. That was for Saturn.
Yeah.
My bad.
No,
That's
it's
right.
good. Like,
Kronos
don't
is
worry,
Saturn.
I get stuff mixed up all the
Right.
time.
Kronos,
You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
and Kronos is a Titan as well. So
okay,
to be
this
very
is confusing
specific
me.
here.
Okay.
So.
This is why I don't
moving
do
on,
planet
moving
things.
on.
Anyway, next comment comes from Tony. Says, hi, Mike. Can Falcon Heavy put an Orion spacecraft into orbit? And if so, to where? And I feel like we had kind of discussed this before, but I figured it was a perfectly viable question and we could address it. So, Mr. Mike, if you could explain to Mr. Tony what's going on there.
Well, yes. Depends on where you want to go to. Because, think about it. The Orion capsule, which has only launched once so far, launched on a Delta Heavy. So Falcon Heavy has more payload capacity than Delta Heavy does. So it could at least do the similar test flight. Although that was a pretty lightweight, it wasn't fully loaded. So a fully loaded Orion with passengers and supplies and everything else, at least low Earth orbit, but potentially to the moon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Neat.
Oh my
Hi,
goodness.
Tony.
I love it.
Hope that answers your question.
Yes. Oh, I'm losing battery. That's why. In any case, so the last comment of the day comes from Hayu.
Hayu.
Says,
Hi, you.
Hey, nobody prevented them, but there's more of an attitude thing going on. This is actually in response to some other the conversations that were going on YouTube. It's better now than it used to be. Parenthetically, women are scoffed at if they wanted to pilot commercial planes for the longest time, but I still hear things. And of course, it varies wildly from place to place, culture to culture too. But if someone says that they've had to deal with a lot of BS to get where they are, I have no reason not to believe them. And I think ultimately that's kind of where a lot of the conversations were, right? We were talking about, we weren't just advocating women to be in the STEM program, but some of the challenges that they have a tendency to come against in some of the STEM fields, if you will. And I think that was a beautiful way of sort of summing all of that up. Like Ben said, some of the conversations did get a little bit heated. There was a little bit of name calling. I'm sad to hear that. But all in all, I think that is the overall arching message on that all the way around.
Yeah, I think ultimately at TMRO we're humanists, I think is the term you used, right? We're pro all humans, right? We don't care. All humans have an opportunity to do whatever they want to do. Yeah.
I think in some cases it's very easy to discount something that you've never personally experienced yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah, because that's how our brains work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's hard to empathize with something that you don't understand or have never had to experience.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that our chat room did that, but a lot of the chat room did step up to that line, and it was. I'll actually be blunt. It was a little disheartening to see some of that. It was normally the chat is not like that, and I
it's
realized
a rare unicorn on YouTube.
Our chat. Yeah, it is. Our chat. It is. We are a unicorn on YouTube. It is amazing, right? So, like, it is truly amazing that the conversations don't devolve. And even though this walked up the line, it still didn't devolve into just total hate spew.
Complete cesspool that normal
I think
YouTube
our chat room did
are.
a really decent job with what was going on.
Yes.
We realized that this is a hot button topic. That wasn't the intention of the particular interview. That's just the way it kind of ended up. And in general, I think we did great. I think we can all agree that we are all on the same page, and we hope that you're with us, is really what it comes down to. In any case, don't forget to thank our ground support citizens, will you, Ben?
Absolutely. They're the people who helped make this segment happen. These are people who contributed between $1 and $2.49 to this specific segment of this show. And speaking of shows, we've got an amazing show coming up next week. Carrie Ann?
Yes, from Relativity Space. Mr. Tim Ellis, the co-founder / CEO of Terran 1 Rocket, 3D printed rockets / Stargate printer.
This
is such an awesome picture.
I
Oh my
know,
gosh.
linger on this and just absorb what's happening in this photo for a moment.
It looks like it's fake.
It's like Dave Maston meets robots.
Is this the future?
It's the future.
Wow.
I'm excited for that.
Future Johnny. Oh wait.
That's an old school Conan O'Brien reference right there.
Well, you know, I gotta do it. So.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. We're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated After Dark as we have tomorrow's science on this week. So we're getting kind of excited about that. If you're watching live, you'll get to see that immediately, which is fantastic. And if
well,
you're
in 45 minutes.
Well, I mean, immediate as we are, because we're kind of slackers. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And if you're watching after the fact, please feel free. If you enjoy tomorrow's space, you might actually also enjoy tomorrow's science.
No, you will.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope, that's our show. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching, and we will see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
How's your battery?
I think.
The microphones aren't muted on the close.
Quite literally can't even hear them.
Carrie Ann, I do need a battery.
The microphones don't mute on the
copy.
close. You can't talk until like now. Until the After Dark segment starts. All of that gets picked up and I can't edit it out.
Thanks. Well, I mean, I was quiet, so.
No, you spoke right over the close. Right over the. Roll the close again.
What?
Roll it again. If you can.
To be fair, I can't hear it.
And then you started talking right here. Right here. Yeah, it was you. It was both of you.
Got it.
It was both of you. So now, we get to watch this whole thing again. For Pete's sake.
I blew it.
Ben's production drama.
I did it. I couldn't hear it.
Oh my God.
I feel like you've yelled at me a lot this week for like things that are not my fault. Sincerely though, we don't have a whole lot of After Dark time.
No, but we have. We've got a good 15 minutes.
All right. You think you're going to end this one in 15 minutes, huh?
This whatever this shuttle thing is about. I didn't see the comment.
Oh,
Yeah,
Space
so-
Mike, let me read it to you. Are you ready?
No, let me read it to you.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
my
yeah.
job. I am Capcom here.
I have one job on this ship.
It is to. Yeah, what is it? What's the line?
It's like to repeat what the computer says. I know it's stupid, but it's my only role. Something like that.
Sigourney Weaver. Oh, amazing. So amazing. Galaxy Quest. If you haven't seen it, really seriously go see it. This comment comes from our chat room from one Space Danger. Space Shuttle worked for crew transport to space station, but was permanently canceled politically. Crew transport is now dependent on Soyuz and is so expensive it challenges shuttle. Commercial crew transport is not to be demonstrated.
Oh my God! So where do we begin with this?
That's what I said.
Let's see here.
15 minutes. You think
so
you're gonna get
Space
the,
Shuttle
okay.
mostly worked, other than it not working very well and being obscenely expensive. You need to understand the point of shuttle. What it was originally designed for was not to just go up and back from a space station. It was designed to create a low Earth orbit transit system that we could then use to send to a Mars transit system and then have another shuttle that goes from that transit system back down to Mars. Did that work? Did that ever come to fruition? The answer is no. And let's remember, that is the original plan behind shuttle. And then, okay. So we canceled space station when we first designed shuttle, and then we radically changed the design of shuttle because the Department of Defense wants way the hell more cargo. But we still, for some reason, unbeknownst to pretty much everyone, have to have astronauts on board to deploy this cargo, which is weird and dumb. And in fact, in the Augustine Commission,
Yes,
I think it was, they basically said, that's weird and dumb and you shouldn't do that. Which doesn't mean you need a totally different rocket, it just means you need the ability to deploy the payload without having to have humans on board. But that's not how NASA interpreted that, so they came up with two whole new rockets, Ares 1 and Ares 5, both of which were a terrible idea, but we're talking shuttle right now. So shuttle also was not canceled just politically. There was some politics there, but let's keep in mind, it was canceled by the Republican administration It was canceled by a Republican, and then the Democratic administration also said, yeah, no, we're going to keep this thing canceled still. And then we kept it canceled. So both, whether you're Democrat or Republican, your president canceled the shuttle. That's how that actually works. Okay. Whew. Expensive. Let's talk about that for a minute. What are we up to? $80 million per seat? Something. It is ridiculous.
$76 million per seat. However, the construction cost that Russia actually has to pay for this is anywhere between $45 to $56 million, depending on which version of the Soyuz. So we're still talking about something that is less than 10%. Less than 10% the cost of a shuttle flight.
Which, by the way, was approximately $1.5 billion. Now, that is the price of the shuttle. If you take STS-1, all 135 missions and divide it by the 200 and something billion dollars the program took, that's not fair because you generally don't include the cost of the vehicle itself. So let me just, oh, you know what, I don't think I have a...
Did they not do like the ground support?
Yeah, see here. Let's see here. It's let's see. Yep. So it's actually, believe it or not, if you take the price of the mission itself, not including any of the ground, anything else, just the price of what NASA would charge for a commercial mission, it's actually approximately the same price as a Soyuz launch, all of which is more expensive than a commercial flight that are coming soon. And the point of none of them have flown yet, that's somewhat fair. Commercial providers have not flown humans to the International Space Station yet, but we are like right up on it, right? I mean, it's coming stupid fast. So, yeah, the space shuttle didn't work for its original intention. It cost an obscene amount of money. It wasn't reusable. It was refurbishable, mind you, right? You had to basically tear the whole freaking thing apart.
That's why I always say we learned how not to do it.
We learned how not to do it. It wasn't prematurely canceled. Keep in mind, each shuttle was only supposed to fly for, what was it, 5 years? 10 years? It had a shelf life of like 10 years?
100 flights.
What?
So,
well,
per airframe.
Yeah,
so.
But they never, right, yeah. So there were two metrics. There was the number of flights, but then there was also the shelf life of the orbiter itself. And the shelf life is, so the per flight we never made it to. Also, we never got to the, how many flights were we supposed to have per year?
It was supposed to be up to, I think it was 100 per year.
100 per year. Yeah, we never got even remotely close to that. But in almost every metric, the space shuttle failed. It was incredibly dangerous to fly on. It was insanely expensive. It was refurbishable, not reusable. It got us stuck in low Earth orbit for 30 years. It was beautiful. It was a masterpiece to watch fly. It was incredible to watch in person. I loved watching the space shuttle fly in person. But if we had continued with the Saturn V program instead of the shuttle, imagine where humanity would be right now. Just, by the way, Saturn V, less expensive.
So, yes.
Less expensive.
All right, there's the end of my rant.
Back to Soyuz for a second. Shuttle flew 135 times. Soyuz has flown over 1,700 times, and all of those flights are still less than the entire shuttle program combined over a 50-year period. So don't even knock on Soyuz like that, man. We're just playing.
There you go. That's where
Don't you talk about my Soyuz like that.
So I know that we've got space pods, but I'm actually going to, because of science, I'm going to yet again just pause them and just shove them to neither one is time critical. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
You've crashed. Cool.
Yeah.
We're canceling space pods. Is that all right, Mike?
That's fine.
Cool.
I'm not going to say no.
I didn't.
Cool.
I produced media for it, but didn't have it in the rundown before you were cut off anyway.
Cool.
So.
All right, so, yep, space pods are dead. Yep, there you go. That's the whole thing with shuttle. Actually, Lisa, what's interesting is you can call in while Mike is attached to the system. I don't know if you knew that. It's a pretty neat new feature we have. And what's really cool is whenever each one of you is talking, it will automatically switch, I think, to the person who is talking. Zapfan! Whew.
One thing I will give Space Danger, though, is he's right at the very tail end of his comment where he said that commercial crew transport has not been demonstrated.
I did give him. I gave him that point.
Yes,
I gave him.
It's like right there.
Yeah. Yep. I don't even know if Space Danger is still here. Wait, hang on. Because that came off of YouTube, right? So I can't see the list from.
got us all riled up.
No, yeah.
The Space Danger came out of our own chat room, so. That looks about right, if you think about it.
Oh, there's a way to. Hey, Dada, is there a way for you? I think there's a way.
I don't have earphones in yet.
Ooh, I hear.
Oh, I think.
I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No.
There we go. Yeah, that's Lisa.
I need to make that stuff.
Yes, right? Like, so the two of them.
Did you call me?
Yeah. Can you? I think there's a button you can press to make either Mike or Lisa go full screen on the thing, on the iPad. I think you can like pin a user.
I'm gonna take my mic off.
That's fine.
Or is it just it doesn't auto do? Nope, doesn't auto do it.
No, there is a way. There's a way to make it full screen.
I can't hear you guys. Okay.
Cool. Now, Mike, you talk for a second.
All right. So
no, that wasn't it. All right.
Doesn't do it automatically.
That's all right. There's a way to make it go. I don't know what it is.
And now I'm talking something. Woo! Words and stuff and things.
Well, I mean, it's highlighting you. Yeah. You have way too much energy.
Something.
Do we have the rest of the science crew here? Do we have any of the science crew here?
Yes.
We have.
I
Sarah?
see someone. I see.
Oh, yeah. Do we have everyone?
Oh my goodness.
No, we're missing Jade.
Oh my goodness.
We're missing Jade.
I'm a little more nervous now.
All right. So on that note, because I'm the only one left here, we're going to.
Praise my TV.
Yeah. I thought you were going to turn it upside down.
No, it was back to front. It's like in reality, it's back to front right now, but somehow something, it gets flipped in the camera. So this is like the wrong way around to me. But it's the right way.
It's in your Zoom account settings. It automatically sets it to a mirror image.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So if you go into
that can't be right because your shirt is forward.
Settings.
Wait. Hang on. Hold.
No,
Lisa, your shirt is forward, but the graphic behind you is backwards.
Wait, what?
I need to look.
But it looks.
Can you full screen her again? Because I can't tell with the shirt.
Because to me, what I'm sending to you looks. Okay, what the hell?
All right,
okay, what do I have to go into, Mike?
There we go. There's that. And then.
Well, if your shirt is correct.
Yeah, your shirt is correct. But if you look at your TV, you're saying you look at your TV and your TV is correct when you look at it?
No, it's not. Hang on, wait.
Yeah,
Let me change it for you guys. Oh, what did I press?
So yeah, if you go into settings and click on video, does it have enable mirror effects selected?
You could just say, look,
I got this.
I'm Amy, I've got Elisa.
Wait, I go into settings where?
And then Jade's going to be on the little.
See, okay, that is backwards on your television. So go into.
There you go.
Now I fixed it.
There you go.
You're just setting up.
Yeah, so Lisa, when you look at your own screen, your own return video, it automatically flips it around and creates a mirror image because that's what humans are used to seeing, right? When you look at your reflection, you're used to seeing it in a mirror. And so they automatically do that for you so that it's not all backwards and messes with your head. So to you, all of your text is backwards, but to us, it's all forwards.
Oh, okay. Well, I fixed the screen for you guys now.
Yes, we can see that.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll leave it because that's going to help me with like the looking at the people, right? If it's backwards.
Well, yeah. Although
okay,
I feel like it should be upside down. Should we? We should tip the screen upside down.
I really want to. I was going to make this upside down.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
It was kind of hilarious.
No, I'm just playing with this dumb mirror effect.
Oh, actually, both of you, in your preferences, do you have something along the lines of send original audio anywhere in there?
Let's see.
Also, I'm not sure if my audio is coming through like this thingy, this microphone here near my mouth. I'm pretty sure it's coming through my webcam, which is way over there.
You're pretty sure what?
I think my audio is coming from my webcam. Is my audio shit?
Tap on your webcam for me. Hang on, I should actually look when you're doing that. Let's try that one more time.
No, I don't think it is from that.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting tapping when you do that. Now tap on your earpiece.
On tomorrow, science discovery.
Yep, that's the one that's coming through.
Got it. And that's probably
No, I don't.
Yes.
Oh, you need a
pretty
one of these,
sure
or you need earbuds. Carrie Ann, do you have any earbuds?
I have my ear right now, but I.
No, we need buds.
Oh. Yeah, the white ones, but there was only the one set, I think.
Okay.
I didn't know that there was a second set.
Ben, do you want me to click allow option for using original sound from microphone in meeting?
Yes.
Original sound, something, something?
Yes.
I'm going to tick that. Okay.
Where are you seeing that?
So going to
Is that in general?
checkbox.
I'm sorry, in which checkbox? Is that in general or in audio?
Audio. Oh, there's also an option that says automatically adjust microphone. Do I want to deselect that?
There we go. That's the view I wanted.
Okay. So allow option for original sound from microphone in meeting. Do I sound any different at all, or does it sound the same?
Then you have to go and enable it. There's 2 steps. So now there's a thing on your actual Zoom meeting screen that says turn on original sound. I'm gonna click that. Now do I sound
Okay.
different?
A little bit, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Also,
It's-
the internet here is potato. So sorry.
Yeah, it's trying. It's trying to keep up, but oh, whoops. I don't know how I did
Actually, I'm hearing like a scratchiness now.
that. I was hearing that before. I'm not sure what that's from.
In a heavily urban area.
I do not know.
But for free?
What are you implying, Miss Benson?
Huh.
Oh wait, you can see my laptop in this shot. There we go.
That's the worst. I always have to have my computer way too far away.
So I've got this camera, and I can't move it any more to the right because there's a bed there, and then I've rearranged the furniture in this hotel room. There's a coffee table, and I turned one of the bins upside down, and then put my laptop on that because I can't get it high enough. I don't have the right equipment here. This is very difficult for me right now.
Yeah, you do not want to see the other side of this space that I'm in right now.
I'm going to take a photo of my setup and post it on Twitter when we're done. Oh, this show. You muted me. Oh, now
All right, so yeah, that scratching is definitely coming from you, Lisa.
Oh, dang it. Really?
Turn off the original sound again because it was less before. Yeah, now it's
Yeah, that's much better.
now it's gone.
Yeah, what'd you do?
When we come back from.
I clicked, I did the turn off the original sound, so now Zoom, I guess, is fixing it.
I want to make sure.
Oh, yes, that sound exists somewhere. That's fine. This will be fine.
Maybe it was scratchy, like my hair on this thing over here.
No, it's like a machine. It's almost like a metal grinding noise. What's happening is I think Zoom is muting it every time you're not talking. But as soon as you start talking, I can hear it again.
Yeah, it comes back ever so slightly when you start talking.
Lisa, can you turn the brightness on your TV down, a lot?
Pretty sure I already turned it down all the way because I foresaw that issue happening. Oh no, I don't want that one. Oh no.
You can. It'll just make a really long show.
There's 2 options you want. There's a backlight and a brightness, and your backlight needs to go to basically 0.
Oh, brightness. But I changed this. Why did it change itself?
I saw your name and I was like, no.
That's the only option I have besides that.
No backlight option?
Me too. Look at the sheet. Got it. It was a hypothetical flipping of the.
Nice.
I don't know why I keep getting an email overlay on top of Space Mic. It's weird.
On the hologram channel, I see that in the preview screen. Oh wait, is it coming up on the TV now too?
Yeah.
It is. What the heck? Did that start after Lisa called in?
I don't know.
It's not showing up on her screen though, so that's good.
Okay, that's the best I can do with the TV. Also, this goes to a screensaver after I think I timed it 35 minutes or something. So.
Yeah. Let me.
I have to remember to just touch a button on the TV so it doesn't go into screensaver mode, like before each segment.
Word.
There you are. All right. And I need to pull this, and you're in the, oh, no, wait, no. I need the other keyboard. So many keyboards! Everyone, I'm going to hang up this channel in a moment here and then call it back. So you should stay in the room, and I think it'll auto reestablish, but let's find out. Jared, I need to be behind. Thank you.
No worries.
I'll just, I think I'll just go ahead and just hang up.
Okay.
And,
Thank you, Space Mike. See ya. Oh, well, we killed him. Oh, it signed us out hard.
All right.
Okay.
So, David, you're talking.
Oh, that is a loud sound in my ear that I did not need. Also, branding. Actually, you know what? We need science cups. Just saying.
I know. I know.
Make me a science cup, thank you.
So I'll be set up over there.
I don't care about science. Science is ass.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Chat room. That's the thing that I need. And the rundown. That'd be good to focus, Lisa.
No dying.
I've got the black one.
I'll just call you
Did someone say hi? Hi. I'm sorry.
So
I don't acknowledge your existence. Is that what?
Ben, I left the meeting and that email thing went away.
Okay.
And then I joined the meeting and now it's back.
Right. Yeah, you need to leave the meeting and leave it out. Leave it gone. Lisa, we'll call you.
My webcam is like auto.
Lisa, we'll call you back in a couple minutes.
Never mind. All right.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. HB1.
We need another set of ears.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about earlier. See if you can find some. I need to do it this way.
Yeah.
Oh, you need like the pack, a microphone pack?
No.
No, like
actual ears.
I need buds.
Right. So start looking around, see if you can find some.
Fine, I will. Thank you.
Interesting. This is hologram. Oh, for Pete's sake. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
When you have a moment, chat integration worked as well.
Okay. Did you try reloading it?
Yes.
And what did it do?
I loaded the science background.
Okay.
I cleared it. I loaded the science background. I loaded the comment, and it's on Vogon.
I think we have a bigger issue.
Going connected.
Okay. I think we have a bigger issue. Let's do that. See if that kills us completely. No, that's not it. It works?
It did work.
Yeah, it should. You're booting. Get ready for the guest. Make sure that room is dialed in or something. I forgot that these Mac Minis take forever to boot. All right, Internet. Sorry. Still battling Zoom a little bit. We're getting better, but yeah, need some love. Boop, boop, boop. No, I'm gonna have to take this mic off, aren't I? This is Jade's mic. Jade.
Okay, good point.
We have more to get to.
Who needed headphones?
Cool. Yeah, does that help?
Yes.
Do we still need headphones?
Thank you.
I do not.
Yes.
Okay, here you go.
Thank you.
Have some.
Yay.
I
Yes,
found
have
them
some.
over here.
Yes, have some. Thank you.
Amazing.
I pooped today.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like it could be easily be the easiest
for
job
Jared.
here, and it could also be one of the hardest because you feel a lot of pressure to do the right thing, to say the right thing, to keep the show moving.
Yes.
And honestly, the show will move whether or not you decide to, or anyway.
That's actually good, because other people are professionals and they have done this before, and if I'm like, it was commercial, right?
Right.
Okay. They know.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which is fantastic for that. Now, the
Yes.
chat room.
Okay. Yes.
A whole new world. Oh, she's in a hotel. I thought she was at work. That's kind of funny. So this is the chat room. It's the integrated chat room that, like you said, you saw YouTube, what have you. That whole thing.
Do you have to do a mic check? I guess that's me, so. Okay, looks like it's working.
You have MS1?
Yeah.
Okay, so red and purple.
This is me talking.
So what we
HAL
typically
9000.
do is say,
Keep going.
there you go.
Walk
Carry
over
it.
there
Don't
and tell me
break
what
the
you had
neck.
for
We'll never
breakfast.
let Ben rush.
For breakfast, I had some scrambled eggs and potatoes and sausage.
I am going to potentially be
And
hopefully
it was
other
very
people
yummy.
As well, is they are going to be
And
marking
then
these things
I had
for
some
you.
coffee.
Okay. So.
And
Actually, no, you shouldn't.
that's it.
Your energy level is so low.
I'll just keep you and tomorrow post. Just basically stay there.
Right.
And the rest of us will be
Copy.
pushing these comments into
Scrambled egg.
Yep. I'll say this and we'll do this,
All right.
just so you get a couple different colors. You can kind of see what's going on.
Okay. Purple means.
Purple is like, hi, this is maybe a suggested thing to talk about.
Okay.
You do not have to talk about it if you don't want to.
Okay.
For whatever reason. White is typically like, hey, that was interesting, whatever. Or sometimes it's a, hey, this guy was being kind of a dick.
Okay.
But it's for us to kind of keep track of, all right, cool. Well, if Mini Stoge was being kind of a dick here, that was probably a bad one to white out, but, you know, just maybe if you see another blue comment from Stoge or purple comment from Stoge, you can be like, that's cool, but Stoge was kind of being a dick, so we're just going to ignore that person.
Okay.
The other nice thing is that when you're done with it, you can also change the color.
Okay, so white is both. White is basically ignore. It's okay, and then red means.
Red is, you know what? That was interesting, and I do want to talk about that. So
Okay.
you have the power to hit red, and it will automatically create that slate. And then you can say, you know what? To Wicked had something interesting to say, and what Dutta will do is flip that to air, and then you get to say, don't forget the main rule, blah blah blah.
Oh, that's so loud. Oh. Okay.
Somebody misspelled the, apparently. All right.
That's the joke.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. When you're done with that,
Hey,
if you
Sarah.
want, you can exit out, you can make it red, you can make it white, however you want to deal with that is totally fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah?
Cool.
Yeah?
That's gonna be.
And/or you can completely ignore this. That's totally
cool.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I'm good. Hopefully.
What is
Yeah, if you
happening?
hang out here, it'll be a lot less to sort of worry and deal
I'll just
with.
see what other people have already skimmed through.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, yay, someone can hear me. That's good.
I can hear you. This is Hal.
Yay.
Yep, I do have.
Oh, you've got these?
Yeah, I get a box. I
Nice.
do. Yeah.
Do you have these? So
No, I have
maybe
one.
Jade does have?
Jade has one. Oh, Ben gave up his to Jade.
Yeah, but there's 3 of you.
Hmm.
Do you have the good one? Would you have the good one?
Oh. Ooh. Jealous.
You have a good one or you have a shitty one?
I have a good one, I think.
You sure? Well, stop turning around.
Sorry.
This is good.
Okay.
What are you plugged into? What are your ears plugged into?
You
You have a shitty one.
Oh.
We're trading.
Oh, okay.
It's like, I don't understand.
I didn't
Something
know
is-
you were talking about a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. That's
Thank
going to
you.
be way better.
Okay.
So much easier to hear. It's not even fun.
I didn't know there were different classes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Computer locks up.
Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Next time I want to be like an idiot. Like.
It shouldn't.
Why do
As
you
long as
keep
you just
hanging
kind
up on me?
of keep your finger on the.
Okay. All right.
Yeah?
So we'll just watch it like a hawk.
Pretty much.
Cool.
You can hear her? She sounds okay.
Hey. My name is Lisa, and for breakfast I had one banana because it's really early and I shouldn't eat before the show.
Do you ever have Vegemite for breakfast?
I love Vegemite, especially like Vegemite and avocado and toast.
Vegemite
and I
is
even left some
terrible.
Vegemite at their house because
It's terrible.
Like, it's amazing. And then I come back, I'm gonna like eat my Vegemite.
I first heard about Vegemite from the Men at Work song Down Under because they mentioned Vegemite in that song.
Vegemite sandwich.
Vegemite sandwich, yeah. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Both that song and Vegemite. Yeah. Cool. Okay, I need to set up my screen so that I can see what's going on, see the rundown and the chat room. Okay.
I'm giving her my computer. She wants to work off of an iPad for the first time. That's just ridiculous.
Benjamin.
Okay.
Well, this thing is not
No, it's not
It's
stable.
kind of.
Yeah, talk to Dutta.
Okay. Dutta, make a better table.
I made that table in less time than it took them to go get the legs for my
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we can't complain then.
Our guests should be available in the next few minutes or so, Dada, if you've not called them already. Do we have a Jade? I don't hear Jade.
Jade is here.
Oh, okay, sweet. Am I out of sync?
You're pretty good. No, you're pretty good. You're pretty good in sync.
Sweet. Awesome. I love it when my electrons of audio and video line up at the same point. It's great.
Oh, I'm going to totally kick this during the show. Probably don't need it, right?
We're not going to need that, no, because I'm not terribly short, and I know you're not short, so.
Yeah, that's for when I'm there. I have to stand on both those box things.
You were adjusting cameras?
You guys excited? I'm so excited for today.
I'm very excited.
Yay!
This is my debut.
Hey.
And you even wore the correct colored shirt. Good job.
Okay.
Totally on brand. Well, red is the color of tomorrow's science, so.
Okay, good. That's an accident, but I'll take it.
Lisa, your camera keeps refocusing. Is there any way to stop that?
No, I don't think so, but I'll try. I can change the auto, like I can take off autofocus, but I can't take off like auto like exposure. So I'm gonna slightly help the problem, but I can't fix it entirely. Sorry.
Move the camera over. Like rotate the camera.
Okay.
The TV will work. Jade's like far from the edge.
Into the fire with you.
Oh, yes.
Camera 1 is okay. Camera 2.
Okay, did I make a difference at all with my camera? Just if I move it around.
Here now.
Oh no, we have a Ben cam?
Is that a thing? Uh-oh.
It is now, apparently.
Ben cam.
Thanks. I hate it.
Uh-oh.
That's what the deuce? Okay. That was an interesting thing.
Just a strong echo. Good. I'm gonna come up right here. Because you all have the good ones now.
That's right.
They got the garbage ones.
Yeah. I didn't know there was a difference, but now I know. So I'm never going to use
Yeah,
that.
these are garbage.
Yeah, garbage.
Hello?
Garbage.
Hey,
Human
how you
garbage.
going?
What'd you call me?
I don't hear you well.
Who's Russian?
Russian? I think I can hear you better now.
Wonderful. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time out of your Saturday to join us today. Jade will be interviewing you
Awesome.
today.
That only
And
works.
we usually start off with a news segment that will happen first. We'll start right on 3 o'clock for you, and that runs for about 20 minutes. So at about 3:20, we'll run a commercial break, and then after that commercial break, we'll go straight into your interview.
Okay.
Can you please? Oh, yes.
You only see my forehead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Hey.
And how would you like us to introduce you on the show? Do you prefer Professor Elena Braga or?
I would give it to you, but you won't memorize it.
Thanks.
I mean, because I can.
As you want. As you wish.
Okay.
Like this is fine.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to
And just so you're aware,
I
we
think
are
you
live
can
to the internet at the moment.
Hmm? Excuse me? I'm not hearing you very well. It's just there are some cuts.
Yep. So
Give me just
at the
one-
moment, we are live to the internet. So anything you say is getting broadcast live to the internet around the world.
Jay, do you have yours in?
Say what?
Is your mic on?
Hi.
There you go. Thank you.
The little N.
Can you hear us a little better now?
Okay. Big N.
Yes.
Little X. Little W. Cool.
Okay, wonderful. So we're already live to the internet. So anything we say from this point forward is live to the internet around the world, just so that you're aware.
Okay. That doesn't make me very okay, so it's okay.
Is there like an intro that, or like a specific intro or outro that I give for the interview besides like introducing? Oh,
Yeah.
there is.
Patreon stuff.
So we are doing.
Actually, in the room.
Okay, cool.
You're no longer doing maker support, but I took that out of the script.
Okay, cool.
So I think Ben scripted it for you.
I scripted it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So pretty much right when they come back from commercial, the camera will be directly on you. You
Yes.
pretty much just have to say, "Hey, I'm Jade.
Welcome
I'm
back
going
to
to do
the
an interview, but first I want to make sure I thank." And it's basically as soon as you go into it, I want to thank our. You probably only need like a couple of words, like
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Cool.
Then he'll go to the covering shot, which you'll be able to see, which is nice. And then you can pretty much just sit here and read all of this. But know that when you get to the head on over to patreon.com/TMRO, he's probably going to come right back to you.
Cool.
And so at that point, you just say, cool, well, here I am. I'm with Dr. Helena Braga, and we're going to be talking about batteries. And
Cool.
you just start in with all that. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then once you're done, the nice thing is you get to just thank our guest for being on.
Uh-huh.
And
Thank you so much.
go into commercial and just say, hey,
Okay.
we're going to go into a commercial, and when we come back, we're doing questions and comments from I almost said last week, from our last show.
Okay, neato.
But that also should be in there.
Yeah, I figured. Elena Braga.
But that's kind of it. Or maybe it's not. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. What I'll do is I'll just put it in here. So, like, should I give like
half a minute?
Is there like a link, or should we ask if there's like a link to if people want to learn more?
Yeah, you
head
definitely
over?
can. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you turn the water back on? Yeah.
You saw what the leak was, man?
Donna, are you happy with all the cameras?
You saw where the leak was?
Yeah. So I'll contact landlord, otherwise it seems like a simple fix. I just don't know.
I'm so sorry. So I'm sorry, after the saying thank you and then asking if there's somewhere they can go, it's short commercial break.
And then we're coming back for, however you want to word it, like we're coming back for questions. And
Is this your first?
Yes.
Your first ever.
First ever.
Oh, 1 o'clock.
Yes.
You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Dr. Braga, I can't really see clearly at the moment, but are you wearing earphones by any chance?
Nice.
So you don't have to be like,
Excuse me?
I sold all of these things. Like you just.
Are you wearing like earphones to
Yes.
listen? Okay, fantastic. Wonderful.
They are not very good. They are plain ones, but flight air.
Thank you.
Dr. Braga, for
yes.
your interview, can you adjust your camera down so that your eyes are in the top third of the frame, please?
Well, I was not prepared that I didn't know that it was going to be a filmed interview. So
I apologize.
I was not preparing the house for this moment.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you. Everybody ready?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Jade?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Do you mind? I'm so sorry. Do you mind putting
Here
that
we
over
go.
there? Thank you. Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Rock and roll.
Thank you. Oh, I need to be in.
Hello and welcome to the conversation. My name is Sarah and I'm joined by Lisa and David, and we've got Dada behind us producing the show as always, and just a little later we'll be joined by Jade. Okay, today in news.
Will the Earth's magnetic field flip?
And I see pineapples the future of scratch-resistant coatings.
And Jade has an interview with Dr. Helena Braga about the future of batteries. Okay, all that and more coming up on Tomorrow Science, Discovery 1.05. All right.
Pretend the script doesn't even exist.
Cool.
Great, thank you.
All right.
No script.
No script. Hello.
Give me energy.
Hey, all right.
You were like, like, energy.
I'll run the disclaimer again. We'll start over.
Cool. Hello and welcome to the conversation. My name is Sarah and I'm joined by Lisa and David. And we've got Dada behind us producing the show. And we'll be joined by Jade later. All right, coming up in our headlines.
Will the Earth's magnetic field flip?
And
see pineapples the future in film coatings.
Oh, your audio went potato. One more time, folks. Okay. Lisa's connection went potato.
Yeah, Lisa, you might need to turn off. Send original audio. I think, Lisa, I think your audio's.
Okay.
Oh, did she really went potato on us?
Oh no! No.
Australian internet. How I love thee.
That is life size.
That is that's Pico. That's Pico Stoge.
That's amazing.
However, second round was
Why is this happening?
Yeah, much better. That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's, yeah.
Hello,
So
am I back
one
yet?
thing with the show
Oh, okay.
is it's conversational, so I
Yeah.
never want us to feel like we're reading scripts. If you're more comfortable with the script, that's fine. But I can never feel like you're reading scripts.
Gotcha.
So I think for your personality type, no scripts. Just be you.
Cool.
Just have a conversation.
Awesome.
And if you get the words wrong, that's okay.
Yay! Okay.
we're not seeing it.
Sweet.
Lisa?
Nope.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why this is happening.
It's all right. Lisa, try hanging up and calling back.
Okay.
Try turning it off and back on again.
That's basically what we're doing. Ah, technology. And infinite windows.
Dink, dink, dink.
Boom. Welcome back, Lisa.
Yay. Glad to be back.
Sound better?
Is that better?
Except every time you click.
And-
Yes.
And do you want me to turn back on the original sound?
No, I think it was a bandwidth issue, so leave it as lies. Yeah, go ahead and turn on original sound. It's going to have that humming noise, but we're going to deal with that. I would
Okay, is
prefer
that okay?
Well, let me know if there's still a humming noise when she turns it on. If there is? Yeah. So what's going on is that's in the original, that's in the stream. Like, that's happening. There's something in there making that noise. When she does audio processing, it's gating her, so it's shutting her audio off.
Yes.
And so then when she goes to talk, we're losing that because the gate has to kick back in. Right. The noise is too annoying.
Can we
I'll turn it off.
EQ that out?
Maybe.
There you go. I changed it. Okay, now
Lisa,
it's
stop talking for a second. Let me. It's way over here, right?
Yeah.
It's all that.
Gate that out.
So I need a high cut. How's that?
It's depleted. You need to like pull this out.
I mean, it's gonna be like that. Yeah. Is that better? I mean,
Lisa, say something, please.
I think this show is going to be amazing today.
It's tolerable.
Yeah.
Movies, hurry up and wait.
Sorry,
Same
everyone.
thing.
Sorry. Oh, wow. All right, Lisa, turn off your use original. We're not gonna. Yeah, I can't.
No?
I can't kill that much frequency.
Okay. All right, this is me. Back to normal.
You need to like pre-speak.
Glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
So do you want me to like be like and then actually say what I'm gonna say or something like that?
No, let's do one other thing. Are you on a Mac or PC?
Let me try to not swear.
PC.
Do you have? Man, I can do this on a Mac. I don't know how to do it on a PC.
She's wearing rocket launcher.
If you right-click on your sound icon and go Recording Devices.
I don't wear SpaceX. I work for SpaceX and I don't want it.
And then, what's selected right now? What are
Playback
your
device. Oh wait, recording devices.
Yeah. What's options for recording? Again, I'm sorry, internet. I know we're late. I'm sorry.
I can change it. I can change it to my microphone on my webcam. Would that work?
Let's try that.
Is this different now?
I'm not sure it's better, but it's definitely different. Keep talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, this is the webcam audio now that it's coming through. Probably super roomy or something. Who
It's
knows?
super roomy, but that really annoying thing is gone. Can you go back to use original audio?
Okay, let's see what happens now. And now this is the original audio that's coming through.
Yeah, there's definitely a room there all the time. Let me turn off my.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a room, so there's that.
Okay, I like this better.
Okay.
It's certainly not ideal to have all that room noise, but I do like this better. Uncheck use original audio. Let's get rid of some of that room. And, oh, yeah, wait. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I already did it.
That's tough.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah. I have to double check. But...
Yep, now I'm back onto the original audio. This is what I'm doing now.
Bye.
This is what we're doing.
No talking for a second.
I'm going to keep talking.
No, don't talk.
I would really love to come back to the US soon. Hopefully I can come. I'm done.
Yeah, sorry.
When are you coming back?
No talking.
Oh, sorry.
Talk again.
Soon, maybe. We'll see. And then flying back to Australia and then back over to the US because that's what I do. And now I have silver on Virgin Australia, but hopefully I'll get gold by the end of this year. That's my plan. Yeah. You don't want me to keep talking? Because I will. I could talk all day about everything that's going on in my life right now, which is so much.
Sorry, stop
but
for a
it's
second.
so exciting.
Stop. Okay, talk again. Talk again.
Okay, I'm going to talk about how, like, all the things
stop.
around me, and there's 2 chairs in this.
All right, that works. We got it gated on our side. Our gate's going to be better than yours. So, all right, I think we can start again. Sorry, everyone. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the conversation. My name is Sarah and I am joined by Lisa and David, and behind us we've got Dada producing, and peeking back there is Jade. We will have her later on the show. But in news, we've got...
Will the Earth's magnetic field flip?
And
can sea pineapples revolutionize thin film coatings?
all right. And Jade has an interview with Dr. Helena Braga about the future of batteries. Okay, all that and more coming up on Tomorrow Science, Discovery 1.05. All right, before we get into the news, we want to give a huge shout out to our Escape Velocity citizens. These people contribute $10 per episode. In return, they get their name in all 3 segments of the show, exclusive access to our Escape Velocity Discord channel, and so much more. Every bit helps, and we wouldn't be able to continue making these awesome shows if it weren't for you. So for a complete list of rewards, or if you would like to become a citizen of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. Okay. You were saying about the Earth's magnetic field. Let's hear it.
Yes. Will the Earth's magnetic field flip again? A new study published in PNAS answers that very question. The Earth's magnetic field is known to flip periodically throughout the millennia. This was discovered in the 50s and the 60s as Earth scientists began to magnetically map the ocean floor, and stripe patterns were discovered that eventually led to the widespread acceptance of plate tectonic theory. As the magma emerges from the fault, it solidifies as it contacts the cold ocean water. As it does so, all the magnetic particles of the magma, having lined up with the magnetic field, freeze in place, preserving the polarity of the field for that portion of the magma. Now, as the ocean floor was first mapped, a stripe pattern emerged, and not only that, but it was symmetrical on both sides of the fault. This was the holy grail of plate tectonic theory. This is what really clinched it. What's more, you could trace the patterns back through time, since as you progressed along the ocean floor away from the fault, you are going back in time, and you can determine the ages of the flips by dating the rocks. A flip would mean that if you had a compass and used it after the flip, the needle would point south instead of north, or vice versa. Approximately, of course, since the magnetic poles do not line up precisely with the geographic. These reversals occur on an average of about every 200,000 years, but the actual time can vary considerably. It has been 780,000 years since the last flip, so according to the average, we are overdue. Now, since we have been monitoring the field strength in modern times, there has been a measurable weakening. This has led scientists to consider the possibility that the field could be approaching a flip, but realize that since we had never seen one before, we have been uncertain how they actually manifest themselves in detail. Enter the science of paleomagnetism. In a study published in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, on April 30th, Earth's magnetic field is probably not reversing. Researchers have discovered that the pattern of the Earth's field today is not very similar to patterns that have existed in the past when the field flipped or reversed. In today's field, we have what is called the South Atlantic Anomaly. This is an area where the inner Van Allen belt comes closest to the Earth's surface due to geometrical realities concerning how the magnetic axis is oriented relative to the geographic axis. The belt dips lower here, and is actually a problem for satellites. The Hubble does not operate when passing through this area, for example. The area of the anomaly has been seen to expand, indicated here by the field strength decreasing since its discovery in 1958, and is believed to be due to the continued weakening of the magnetic field's overall strength. So actually, to be more precise, the field can ultimately do two different things. The first is a reversal or a flip, as I previously described. The second thing is an excursion. This is where the field weakens and gets all scrambled up, and then it returns back to its previous orientation. So this map shows the Earth's magnetic field during two recent, geologically speaking, periods of the Earth's history. These field patterns discovered do not match what we are currently seeing today with the South Atlantic anomaly. Today's pattern more closely matches, and I quote from the article, in earlier times, centered at 49 and 46,000 years ago, the field is comparable to today's field with an intensity structure similar to today's South Atlantic anomaly. These fields, which are strongly similar to our field today, did not go on to develop into an excursion or a reversal. This indicates that our current weakening field will eventually recover and not lead to an extreme event.
All right, good to know. Phew, that means our navigation on the planet is not in danger.
Right,
What would
like
happen if the Earth's magnetic field had flipped?
Like birds will be okay, and
All right.
all the animals that use the magnetic field will be fine, and for now, but eventually it's going to happen, but for now we're okay.
All right, and just so we know, the Van Allen belts, could you remind me those?
The Van Allen belts are areas where the radiation gets trapped in the Earth's magnetic field around the Earth, and so they're areas of concentrated radiation.
All right, cool. Okay, and now, I have heard just now that there are such things as sea pineapples, and I'm really intrigued.
Well, yeah, I mean, sea pineapples, they actually are a thing. And new research that was published yesterday, May 4, in the journal Advanced Functional Materials, shows that sea pineapples may actually be the secret to improving the strength of thin film coatings. So what this research was looking at was sea pineapples, or their scientific name is tunicates. And they're marine creatures that are actually known as a pest around some parts of the world. But in some parts of the world, they're also eaten as a delicacy. People eat these things. But the researchers found that if the tunicates were processed by controlled acid hydrolysis, which just kind of means like breaking down using acid, the remaining compounds are called cellulose nanocrystals, which I'm going to call CNCs from now on. And don't get that mixed up with like building stuff CNC machines. This is different. And so these cellulose nanocrystals, CNCs, could be used to strengthen thin films. And CNCs are not new. They can actually be made really easily from wood pulp waste left over from things like lumber and paper industries. And much research has actually looked into whether wood-derived CNCs could be the next big biological material with like similar properties to bone or ivory. And they were strong, but they just turned out to be too brittle if you just used the wood CNCs alone. And that's where tunicates come in to save the day. So all CNCs, whether they're made from wood or from tunicates, can form helical nanostructures when left to dry into a film. And helical just means spiral. Each individual nanofiber is like a stair in the staircase, and multiple fibers pile on top of each other to form the staircase, like you can see in the top left corner of that image there, labeled A. It's like a staircase. And so the researchers just started with a mixture of just wood CNCs, and they tested what happened when they added different amounts of tunicate CNCs. They got these really striking patterns that are characteristic of staircase-shaped molecules when they looked at them under the microscope. But they also found that a mixture of about 30% tunicate CNCs combined with wood CNCs had the most strength. Each of the images that you can see here, below the below 6 images show an out-of-plane ductility test, or basically how much you can bend it before the film breaks. And each colored line there was the amount of curvature before the film snapped. But the researchers also found that mixtures greater than 10% tunicate CNCs were great at reflecting UV radiation, and this was totally unexpected. So if you have a look at the bottom right-hand graph there, each of those lines peak at a certain point where that particular percentage mixture of tunicate CNCs reflects the most amount of light. And so the bluey purple ones, which are from 10% onwards, they peak in their UV wavelength, so they reflect UV light. And so it's kind of thought that these CNC mixtures could have new uses, like protective coatings for things like eyeglasses, or maybe they could be used in things like food packaging or biomedical instruments. So I thought that was a pretty cool, neat little thing that these scientists found out.
All right, the sea giving us new technology every day. All right, now, David.
Yes, how abundant is phosphorus in the universe? Astronomers from the School of Physics and Astronomy at Cardiff University have been working to find out. What is phosphorus good for? Well, it's absolutely necessary for life, as we know it. As it is used in the body as a phosphate. That is a polyatomic ion, if you remember that from your high school chemistry. That is just a fancy way of saying that it is a molecule with an electric charge, in this case -3, courtesy of its oxygen atoms. Now, when it comes to biology, chemistry is destiny, and phosphate has very useful properties that render it indispensable to life as we know it. The reason I'm emphasizing this, of course, is because the life on our planet is the only life we know about, so that limits us as to our understanding of life. But phosphorus is so darn useful that I, for one, would not be surprised if all life required it. Also, even though there may be other forms of life out there, they, by definition, would only have access to the same chemical building blocks that we do, and that sets limits on what is possible. Chemistry is destiny. Phosphate groups also form part of the backbone of the DNA molecule, that other part being a sugar called deoxyribose. They bond together, resulting in an alternating sugar-phosphate backbone. It is the specific properties of the phosphate ion that help give DNA its helical structure, as well as enabling it to be water-soluble as well. The nucleic acids that form the rungs of the DNA ladder are not otherwise naturally so. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, is another really important organic molecule that uses phosphorus. This is the molecular energy currency of the body, and energy is stored and released by the molecule in the formation and breaking of the phosphate bonds. Phosphate can do this because of its 4 oxygen atoms bound to the phosphorus and still having a net charge. So now I have convinced you how important phosphate is to life as we know it. The natural conclusion is that in order for life to exist elsewhere in the universe, there needs to be phosphorus, and that is what brings me to the main topic of my story. Recently, astronomers from the School of Physics and Astronomy at Cardiff University have been using the William Herschel telescope to observe infrared light from 2 supernova remnants, the Crab Nebula and Cassiopeia A. They were specifically looking for iron and phosphorus. I've already discussed phosphorus. Iron, of course, is also important for, amongst other things, making up the core of a planet if you want it to have a magnetic field, but I digress. The results of the comparison were surprising. They found much less phosphorus in the Crab Nebula than Cassiopeia A. These results are preliminary, and they've asked for more telescope time to look at the nebula again to check if they missed some. But the implications of these findings are that phosphorus just lying around in abundance when a nebula begins to collapse to form a new star system where life can potentially arise is not a foregone conclusion. It might very well depend on you being lucky enough to be part of the right kind of nebula, one that received material from the right kind of supernova explosion, one rich in phosphorus. Dr. Greaves said ominously, the route to carrying phosphorus into newborn planets looks rather precarious. We shall have to wait and see if we can learn more about phosphorus abundance in the universe. In the meantime, be thankful that a supernova billions of years ago and far, far away died that you might live.
All right. Phosphorus. Can't get enough of it.
We need a lot of phosphorus. It's important stuff.
All right. Now, Lisa, I think you had something about a solar water filter.
Yeah, so research that was published just 2 days ago on May 3rd in the journal Advanced Science, researchers found a way to harness the power of the sun, to filter water with near perfect efficiency, so I'm really excited about it. They actually modified the design of something called a solar still, and solar stills have been around for hundreds of years. You can basically make one yourself, like with some plastic sheeting, a couple rocks. It uses the power of the sun to heat up water so that it evaporates into water vapor. This water vapor is purified and you collect it by letting it condense or turn back into a liquid. And if you built your solar still correctly, then you can usually collect that purified water away from contaminated water. But the problem is that these designs aren't really that efficient. They take in the heat from the environment and heat up and then lose that heat back to the environment or surrounding air, and that heat isn't used to evaporate the water. But now researchers have come up with a way to keep their solar stills cool. And they've done that with some pretty cool design. They used paper coated with carbon and placed it in a triangle roof shape with both ends draped in water. As the water traveled up the paper through wicking, it gained heat and evaporated, causing even more water to be drawn up. And by laying the paper at this steep angle, it received less direct sunlight than if it was laid horizontal, which helped keep the paper cool. And you can see in this image that the flat version, or image B, got as hot as 42 degrees centigrade, whereas the sloped versions were much cooler. Only the 22.4 degree slope only reached 25.6 degrees Celsius. And the researchers actually achieved an evaporation of 2.2 liters of water per hour per square meter of the device under one equivalent sun of light. And PhD graduate Hao-Min Song believes that if this technology is upscaled to the size of something like a mini fridge, it could generate 10 to 20 liters of clean water every single day. But I think the coolest thing is that by using low-cost materials, this technology could be a real alternative to water filtration for people in need. And they've even got backing from the National Science Foundation's Small Business Innovation Research Program. They've created a startup called Sunny Clean Water to bring it to the people who need it the most.
All right. Okay. Now we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back with Jade. Thank you, everybody.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
The conversation. I'm Jade. Before we get into our main topic,
Let's see that again. Sorry.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Tell me what.
Just note that though.
Hello and welcome back to The Conversation. Before we dive into our main topic, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our Escape Velocity citizens. We also want to thank our Orbital citizens. These people contribute $5 an episode. In return, they get their name in the second and third segments of the show, voting rights on upcoming roundtable discussions, free worldwide shipping from our TMRO swag store, and so much more. Every bit helps, and we wouldn't be able to continue making these awesome shows if it weren't for you. So for a complete list of rewards, or if you would like to become a citizen of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. So today, I am joined and honored to be speaking with Dr. Maria Helena Braga. She's the engineering professor from the University of Porto in Portugal, as well as a research scientist at the University of Texas, Austin. She's also a senior research fellow at the Materials Institute, headed by colleague and lithium-ion battery co-inventor John Goodenough, where she is currently expanding our understanding of solid glass electrolytes and glass batteries. Hello, Dr. Maria Helena Braga. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and I saw so many interesting things in the first part of this program. I congratulate you because I started with magnetic fields, exactly analyzing the rocks. So it's very interesting for me, and all the other interesting small programs that you have presented here. Very, very interesting.
Well, thank
Congratulations.
you. Oh, well, thank you so much. That definitely means the world to us. We're glad you tuned in for the news segment. So I guess as we get started, I think it's important to ask, what is a solid-state battery, and how does it improve upon our everyday lithium-ion battery?
Okay, so let's start by what is a battery. A battery is composed by two electrodes in which the ions and electrons react, and with a compound that makes the electrodes, and it's made by an electrolyte, which is more or less like a carpet to ions. And where the electrolyte is a very bad conductor of electrons, because we want the electrons to go through the external circuit to give energy to all our appliances, for example, our computer. So we don't want the electrons to go through the interior of the cell. Now, in a lithium-ion battery, that electrolyte, which is that so-called carpet for the ions, is liquid, and it's a flammable liquid. So it happens very frequently that this flammable liquid, because some dendrites, which are kind of branches or swords that go from one electrode to the other, they grow inside your battery. They form short circuits for the electrons to go through inside the battery. And when the electrons cross the battery heats up. And because you have a flammable liquid, the explosions can occur. And we have heard about a lot of explosions.
Absolutely.
So to overcome that problem, the idea is to substitute the liquid, the flammable liquid, organic liquid, by a solid-state electrolyte.
Fascinating. Okay, so, and I think that brings me to my next question, which I actually did already see in the chat here. So WKD actually asks, why aren't lithium ions good enough anymore? Now, I know you just listed a couple of potential risks with using these batteries, but is there like a big overall reason why we would need an improved type of battery, like an overall different design of it?
So the first reason I would say is safety, as I was telling before. All lithium-ion batteries have to use an organic liquid electrolyte because lithium cannot be in contact with water, because otherwise it would explode. So you have to use an organic electrolyte. So the first reason is this safety reason. because you cannot overcharge the battery. Otherwise, if you overcharge the battery, you start forming. There are other spurious reactions that occur in your electrolyte, in your battery, as we are seeing all these dendrites grow, these kind of branches in our left side of the image, and they can go through the separator that separates the two electrodes. And when they do, they are the perfect pathway for the electrons. So they don't go through the external circuit. They prefer to go to the short circuit. They are like us. They use the law of the least effort. So, so the electrons will go through inside the battery, and then this may cause an explosion, because we know you are in agreement with Ohm's law, and there is another law that says that Joule, that if you have a low resistance in your cell, a high resistance in your cell, you are going to form a lot of heat. So the electrons will go through the cell, and there will be a thermal runaway and an explosion. So this is the safety is the biggest issue. The other issue is that the lithium-ion battery of today has evolved almost as much as it can evolve. So we are achieving almost 100% of the capacity or energy density that is directly related with the capacity of the battery. So for these type of cathodes or positive electrodes that we use in today's lithium-ion, you cannot increase the capacity anymore, or there's just a small amount of left to increase. So the improvements in the lithium-ion battery are just engineer improvements. So at the surface and the contacts, and so it's not anymore a breakthrough or a step increase or a leap that can be done with lithium-ion. And they are just determined, the capacity is determined by the cathode. So we cannot improve much more the energy stored in the lithium-ion. So that's why we want a new battery, because it's not enough, the energy that we store in the lithium-ion.
Absolutely. So you mentioned breakthrough, and that brings me to my next question. I understand a lot of your research was in materials science and engineering. So I have to ask, what was the breakthrough for you and your team in developing the design of using glass or developing the solid-state battery?
So actually, I'm a physicist. So we were, and Professor Goodenough is also a physicist. And when I started to work in Portugal in the glass, the most important property for me was actually the high dielectric constant that the glass has, not how fast the ions are conducted in the electrolyte. So let's remember that the electrolyte is like a carpet for the ions. So they have to be conducted in a fast way so that we don't lose the energy to conduct them in a battery. But in a capacitor, that is, instead of an electrolyte, we use a dielectric material. This means it's a material that can form molecules that are polar. So they have a zone which is more negatively charged and a zone that is more positively charged. Let's imagine like water, for example. And so if the material is what we call ferroelectric, so yeah, exactly. In the electrolytes, here in a conventional battery, you have what people are worried about is the conductivity of the ions in the electrolyte. So how fast they are conducted in the electrolyte, so that no energy is lost or a minimum amount of energy is lost. In our case, we use the capacity of a dielectric material which not only has fast ions but also has dipoles that can align and form chains that are aligned with the electric field. And so this is the principle of how a capacitor works. So they actually, the charge is conducted through the alignment of the dipoles. So this gives an extra surface charge that has to be compensated at the interfaces. So this is very important. This would be the breakthrough for our batteries, is that not only they have ions that are conducted in a fast way, but they have these dipoles as in a ferroelectric material that can align and bring an extra surface charge, which is going to create other phenomena inside the battery, like the possibility of charging a supercapacitor inside the battery, like at one interface in the battery. This is a little bit difficult to explain without our figures, but I hope you can understand that besides the usual electrochemical energy that is stored in a battery, we can store electrostatic energy like in a capacitor. So this is mainly the important message, or what we think it's important is the breakthrough in our technology.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for explaining that. That certainly does have like a lot of really amazing implications. And obviously there's a long list of positives with these new batteries, such as longer battery life, higher energy density, not blowing up in my pocket, which is always a plus. But there's a question in the chat that I was actually going to ask as well from Hanny Sporwerp on Twitch. They ask, what are the qualities of solid-state batteries other than safety? Can they be quick charged safely? Also, what are the downsides? What are the potential complications from these new batteries?
So, very good question, actually. Usually, solid-state batteries can only be used at around 50, 60 degrees C because the ions are not as fast traveling in the electrolyte as in the liquid. And we can understand this. The diffusion across a solid is usually slower than across a liquid. So what happened? The problems with the solid state batteries is usually related to this. What the people do to overcome this problem is that they make thin layers of electrolytes, so that the thickness is, of course, smaller, and so the ions don't have to travel a long distance, so they don't spend energy by traveling. So this is the downside of a solid state battery. But if in our case, if in a battery you have these chains that can align, then the ions don't have to travel all through the battery. You have the ferroelectric possibility as in a capacitor, and so the ions only do small displacement in the battery. So we can use these batteries not only at room temperature but at lower temperatures as well, because we have that extra, which are the dipoles that align and connect, like they make the connection between the two interfaces of the electrodes, and they make the connection of the charge between the two interfaces. So the ions only approached one interface and get away from the interface, but they don't have to travel all the way through one side to the other, from one electrode to the other. Also because our electrolyte contains a lot of ions. So if the ions start to plate, which means react with the electrons on, for example, the negative electrode, they don't have to be immediately replenished by the ions on the cathode, which is what usually happens in a battery, because there are a lot of ions in our electrolyte. So these are advantages that make the possibility, that allow the possibility of working with our batteries at low temperature.
Awesome. So, so we've heard about kind of how this improves upon, our everyday lithium-ion battery, but what are kind of the implications for these improved batteries? Obviously, everybody wants a battery that lasts longer, especially when it comes to cell phone use and whatnot, but what about transportation? As I understand from some of my research, is that this can have huge implications for kind of transitioning more into green energy vehicles. So what types of implications would this have on the broader scale?
So of course, we are still at the coin cell level. We need to make, actually the industry needs to make the scale up. But we are very confident that the scale up is going to be possible. So what do you need in a car? You need a battery that charges fast and that can be auto-sufficient for a long pathway, for a long run. So for being auto-sufficient for a long run, you need to have a very high energy density or capacity to store electrons and ions in your battery. So as in our case, because we not only have the electrochemical storage like in a normal battery, but we have the electrostatic storage as in a supercapacitor, we have an extra energy that can be stored in one of the batteries, the one that we think would fit better for a vehicle, because we are studying different kinds of batteries or different kinds of architectures. But for the one for the car, I would say that this is what happens. We have the electrostatic as well as the electrochemical component. So that kind of doubles the electrochemical component. So we have a high capacity. And on the other hand, you need to charge fast because you don't want to wait for a long time in your station, even if they are very nice and you can have a coffee or or some cookies and rest a little bit. You don't want to wait there for a long time. So you want to charge fast your car. So as I was saying, because we have the electrostatic component, we can charge fast at least that component, and this makes the battery very attractive because we can charge it fast, and this is one of the important issues in batteries for cars.
Absolutely. So you did mention that they do work in lower temperatures, and actually we have a question from our very own Mini Soj, and she asked, would they be well suited to work on Mars, which is extremely cold and would experience extremely low temperatures?
I think that from Mars we still have to improve a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Well, what I can say is that we are making experiments at -20 degrees C, and we can work with them at -20 degrees C, and eventually at -30. But that will not be eventually possible to work on Mars. Or I think that we would still need to come up with another breakthrough, or all the other researchers that are studying batteries.
Awesome. Well, it's a stretch goal, but I'm sure we'll get there someday. So there's a really good question from WKD, and they ask, have you found any commercial partners already to assist with development and getting this on shelves at stores?
There are a few industries and other partners in negotiations, and we have already started to work in research with some, but I cannot be very deep into this because this is University of Texas issue, and I don't want to go further.
Absolutely, definitely understand.
Tell more about this.
But it's good to know, and it gives us hope that there is some traction there and that there is going to be further development. And that leads me to my next question. How long do you project it'll take until these hit the mainstream market and we can actually see them being used on a bigger scale? From what I understand, lithium-ion batteries originally took over a decade before they became commercially available. So using your future predicting skills, how long do you think it'll take for these?
Of course, I don't have a crystal ball. I would like to, but no. Well, I think this depends much more on the industry than it depends on us, because what we do is that we work on the concepts. We make coin cells, and we develop the strategies and the architectures and try to understand how the batteries work and what are the principles underneath how they work. But the develop, so the scale up, making them big and make all the tests that need to be done for a commercialization, especially in vehicles. This has to be done by industry. This is the purpose of the industry, not the purpose of researchers at a university. So we are trying to go as far as we can go, but our main motto is to make research, and the development should be made by the industry. So it depends on the industry. If the industry has a lot of skilled scientists as well, and they have the proper tools and so on, this will be faster. If not, it will be slower, but hopefully it will come out.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Braga, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Where can viewers go if they want to learn more about solid-state batteries and the progress of them?
Well, that's a good question. We are actually, we will have a site in some months.
Oh, wonderful.
But so far we don't have an updated site, but they can study, they can go to the papers, even if it's for, for more technical detail. But I think they can search for our names and see our papers.
Absolutely.
This would be what we have right now.
Definitely.
But in the future, we will have a site where we put all the news and more details.
Well, that's exciting. I look forward to seeing that. But yeah, absolutely right. You Google any sort of either solid-state battery or Dr. Braga, and there's a wealth of journals and all sorts of wonderful resources that you, the viewer, can actually go read into. Believe me, it's a fascinating topic. I had to read everything at least 3 or 4 times before I kind of understood it. But once I kind of grasped the meaning of everything, it's absolutely fascinating, extremely exciting. So thanks again so much for joining us. You definitely enlightened us and helped us understand everything so much better, Dr. Braga, and we are so excited to hear about the progress of these solid-state batteries. So thanks again for joining.
It was my pleasure and my honor, and I see that you have a wonderful, fantastic project, and keep on going like this and making all these spots. We need to talk about science to everybody, and it's very, very interesting. Congratulations! You are the ones that should be congratulated.
Oh, thank you. That means the world to us. So stay tuned. We will be back after a short commercial break to answer your comments from the last show. So we'll see you in just a bit.
Science. It both draws us together and tears us apart. Brings discoveries to cure us and threaten us. It is neither good nor evil. It is what we decide to make of it. There is so much more to learn, and we are curious. Together, let's explore the science of tomorrow.
Why is Stode's screen split? Which right here? Change view.
Maybe
You want to move?
Okay, is this better now?
You want to move the TV to center between Jade and Ben?
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Go, 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 go.
Dr. Brother, I missed a little bit at the end there, but you're welcome to leave now if you'd like, or you can hang around and watch the rest of the show. It's up to you.
Hear you.
Are we ready?
Welcome back to the conversation. Before we get started on last week's comments from last month's show, we are going to give a huge thank you to our escape velocity citizens. We want to thank our orbital citizens and, of course, our suborbital citizens. These people contribute $2.50 per episode. In return, they get their name in the third segment of the show, free U.S. shipping from our TMRO swag store, and so much more. Every bit helps, and we wouldn't be able to continue making these awesome shows if it weren't for you. So for a complete list of rewards, or if you would like to become a citizen of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right. So last month on our show, we spoke with Guy Trudell, MD, from the University of Ottawa about the Marrow experiment. All right, so we've got some comments about that. Actually, sorry, this first comment is from YouTube, and it's FPV Reviews. Okay, it hardly matters, but just for the record, taking a breath sample first thing in the morning must refer to the waking time for each astronaut and not for the actual morning aboard ISS, which there would be approximately 19 for every Earth day time equivalent. Okay. Does anyone have any comments on that segment?
So I think this one is referring to, so with the Marrow experiment, the astronauts or the subjects actually had to give a breath sample as soon as they woke up in the morning. It had nothing to do with like it was when they woke up, not when like the ISS passed into like wake up time or Houston wake up time, anything like that. Because like if you're not aware, the ISS does go around the Earth. Like you get 15 sunsets and sunrises every day because it goes around the Earth so quickly. So you don't have to do 15 breath samples for this particular experiment.
They don't have to go to bed every time it goes around.
It's like 15 nap times. It's epic.
Oh man.
You're like the shortest circadian rhythm ever.
All right? Oh.
All right. So then, yes, FPV Reviews. It was about when the astronaut woke up first time. All right. We've got another comment from AZ Off Roadster from YouTube. Okay. Getting a bone marrow sample from the pelvis is not as bad as some say. It's no picnic, but I felt worse. Not asking why. The doctor that took mine was a small Asian woman. She needed to call in help to actually get the needle in. You're not selling me on this.
Yeah, the fact that you would need more than one human strength to get a rather thick needle into me bones doesn't exactly sound like a walk in the park, but you said it's no picnic.
Yep, puncturing bone with steel.
But hey, this person's felt worse. So we don't know. This person could be like Wolverine status pain.
Right, every time.
Yeah, like he's like gone through some stuff.
Right,
so this
don't
was
ask.
like nothing.
I got you.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's still an important thing to do, getting the bone marrow
Absolutely.
samples. So it's good that it's not the worst thing you'll ever feel. So let's have it done.
I mean, unless you've like never experienced like, you know, like, oh my God, my arm got chopped off type of pain, in which case I'm sure getting a marrow sample extracted is an experience to be had.
Right? Probably childbirth, but this doesn't sound like it comes with the oxytocin wash after, so there's no, okay,
You can't
love
get
it now.
can't get an epidural for that. All right.
All right, our next comment is from YouTube, Francisco Pinto. Let's see, great episode. Congratulations for the interview. It was really amazing. I'm looking forward to watching the interview with Dr. Maria Helena Braga, Portuguese speaker like me, although she is Portuguese and I am Brazilian. We love your shows down here. Thank you so much. We love doing them.
I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it lived up to your expectations.
Hi, Brazil.
Hello, Brazil.
And Portugal, why not?
Portugal's beautiful.
All right, and we know all about batteries, or at least solid states.
Yeah. Woo.
Okay, another one from YouTube. We have LBCG. Okay, this one's a suggestion. If you feel like there's loads that can be said and your shows are too far apart, then once every 2 weeks maybe? Or I say that knowing it's a lot of work and a long day, so whatever's best. Okay, is this about a comment that happened last show? We've got so much stuff we want to say.
Must have been during After Dark. That's when we had a whole conversation about everything.
Wanting to do more, overachieving.
I would love if we had a show every 2 weeks. And you know what? That's the whole point of like bringing on, you know, Sarah and David and expanding the cast. Because yeah, and also thank you for coming on the show. Like, I know it was really last minute, but you guys have done an amazing job. And yeah, the whole reason that we're bringing more people into the show and training everybody and cross-training everybody and making them feel uncomfortable with roles they've never done before at the last minute is so that we can train our cast to have enough people to be able to spin up more shows and have them going every few weeks without absolutely exhausting everybody. So that's kind of reasoning behind that. And I hope eventually we will get to have a science show every 2 weeks, hopefully when I finally get back to the US. But yeah, that is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is weekly, so you know we'll get
daily, hourly. We'll never
Non-stop
stop.
coverage. All right. LBCG had another suggestion. Oh, one more suggestion, although it could be a lot of work. How about visits out to actual labs and discussions with scientists there? You can call them science documentaries or something else. Copyrighted. All right. It could make for interesting shows, and you can shoot footage on location for great visuals.
That would be epic, like little
Absolutely.
field trips.
I know. I'm down. Let's pitch it to Ben.
Hey Ben, how you feel about that? Oh no, that would be.
Hey Ben, this is happening. You get no choice in the matter.
I know, right?
It's decided. Lisa just said.
We're just gonna do it rogue. We're gonna just do it live.
Tomorrow rogue.
We'll
like
do it
NASA
live.
rogue.
Do it live.
There you go. Yeah, no, that would be amazing, especially if we went out to like some really neat labs or, you know, maybe a JPL visit here and there. It's down the street, basically.
Just pitching.
And
JPL.
Just
we're
saying,
coming at you.
you know.
Yeah.
I think it'd be neat.
Yeah.
I like this comment. I don't think it'd be too much work. But then again, I'm not the technical person, so I could be like getting my eyes rolled out so hard right now. Let's just show up and talk to people. It's not that much work.
And again, this all comes down to, you know, having the shows grow and expand. And one way that we can do that is by having more resources. And that's where, you know, the crowdfunding comes in. The bigger that our supportive network gets, the more things we can do and the cooler stuff we can do. You know, with science, we can go into labs and we can do stuff on location. With space, we can do live launch coverage. But it all comes down to having those resources, and which is why we're so grateful to all the crowdfunders and citizens of tomorrow that we have at the moment too. So, and even if you can't contribute, you know, with money, sharing the show helps a lot as well, because then we can reach greater audiences, and maybe that will help us get more resources too.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Never know if we get set in front of the right pair of eyes, and then all of a sudden, bam, private investor, billions of dollars. All of a sudden, we're on Mars. I mean, it can happen.
No?
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, LBCG, for the great suggestions. We're working on it, and you can help. All right. Okay, so next month, we hope you will come back for our interview with Alex Moss, CEO and founder of Canaria Technologies. They're building wearable tech to fight fatigue-related workplace injury and medically monitor astronauts in space. That sounds exciting.
I mean, I'm already hooked.
All right, well, it's a good thing you'll be doing. No, I'm just kidding.
By the way.
Okay, so before we go, we do want to recognize our ground support citizens. These people contribute $1 per episode. In return, they get access to After Dark as soon as it's posted on demand, access to our exclusive citizens-only hangouts, and so much more. Every bit helps, and we wouldn't be able to continue making these awesome shows if it weren't for you. So, for a complete list of rewards, or if you would like to become a citizen of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And signing off.
See you next month.
I totally got yelled at for talking during the outro, and Lisa did it, and it wasn't my fault, and I can't get yelled at for it anymore.
I'm sorry.
I got yelled at as well.
Everyone's yelling. I feel like I'm getting yelled at.
This is what happens when you talk during the outro. I roll you off the set.
Oh, burn!
No.
Lisa,
Look at she's crying.
Mike and Stoge both have a slight lag. So
Not that long.
Oh, that was amazing, though.
Roll
I
it
was
back
like,
in.
it's literally just this show got yelled at.
Yay.
The exact same thing.
Oops.
Oh, that was amazing. That's the only thing I can do to that.
For Pete's sake, people.
I would offer to edit it for
I
you,
can't hear.
except
I don't
I'm
have
not
ears.
physically in the
She's
US.
making really good points right now.
Yeah, I know.
Just changed my
Whatever she
life.
said, she's probably right. Let's be fair. She said she could edit it for you, but she's not here.
No. Actually, editing the outro is hard because it's a dissolved transition with the existing audio from the show. So you have trying to delete that. It's actually fairly. It's not impossible, but it's a fairly complex edit to make it sound natural.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
They're saying it's like you kicked a puppy. I hope you got what you wanted.
But it is something I would do.
But everyone's really
say
supported by Lisa.
another
Poor Stoge.
I want to say another really big thank you to Dr. Braga for coming on and taking all that time out of your Saturday to come and be on our show. We really, really appreciate it. And the chat room was just exploding with questions. It was amazing. Everybody was so engaged and interested in all of this new science. So really appreciate that.
I think I will be one of your friends.
We want to be your friend.
Here, we can move over soon.
I want to be your
She's working on
friend
you.
and have my name. Just kidding. You don't have to have my name there. Just be your friend because it's a very interesting show. Actually, at the Saturdays, I used to do that. Now I'm working too much. But I used to see these kind of shows.
Oh,
thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for inviting me. So, bye-bye. Shall I say goodbye? Did it finish?
It's up to you. We're in something
Or
called
do we have more?
You can chill with us.
Yeah, totally up
We're
to you.
finished. We're in a portion of the show that we call After Dark. It's very casual. It's very informal. It's kind of like an after show. So, I mean, if you would like, you can stick around. We just talk about anything now. It doesn't have to be about science.
Oh, you talk about everything? Okay.
Everything.
No holds barred. What do you talk after dark? That sounds
There are
Should come
some
with
more
like techno
questions.
intro.
There are some,
Lights out of nowhere.
There are some more questions that we didn't get a chance to get to in the interview.
Yes.
I mean, if you wanted to try and answer those, if you like. Otherwise, we can talk about other things like Disneyland or something.
Yeah,
Just off the top of your head.
It's a universal topic.
Let's see.
You're boo. Go kick a puppy.
So, Doctor, someone on the chat room was asking about a previous interview you did with glass batteries. Was that you? And so they were.
I think so.
Yeah, they were worried. They were not worried. They were wanting to know more, and if you've made if this is related to that, or if this is a new research path.
No, it is related. The electrolyte, the glass electrolyte, is actually the one that has dipoles and ions, besides the ions.
Gotcha.
So we are also progressing, of course, in the research and trying to learn new things about it. So we are now more sure that the important one of the important parts is these dipole, this high dielectric constant, which is due to dipoles, like these molecules very similar to water, but instead of having H2O, we would have lithium 2O and sodium 2O, for example. So these allow us to make other kinds of batteries, more than the fact that it is a glass. These would be more important characteristic. That's why I didn't really focus on the fact that it's a glass.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Not at all. Thanks for clarifying.
I have a question.
And in the front row.
So you mentioned that lithium-ion batteries have basically maxed out. So if we move to solid-state batteries, that means you're saying that we can continue to increase energy density. Is that correct? We can move beyond. So as you increase energy density, when you have a catastrophic failure, obviously that's bad because the battery is going to release its energy very quickly. Bad, right? So is there ways to make it safer? You're packing all that energy into a small space. How do we make them safe so they don't like start fires and blow things up? And do you have any ideas about that?
That's a very good question, actually. I'm not saying that all the solid-state batteries would have double or in capacity. The double in capacity comes from these other properties, the fact that besides a battery, it is a capacitor, or it can store electrostatic energy as in a capacitor. So it's kind of a two-in-one, as you might say. So, and in our case, we don't have the same problems or catastrophic problems, because what makes the catastrophic problems in a lithium ion is the fact that you have a flammable liquid. In a solid, with a solid, you don't know. Solid is not flammable. The solids in any solid battery, they are not flammable. So, and also they prevent the formation of these dendrites, these branches, these images that we have seen. Because if the solid wets is not like water, but if it sticks to the surface and it, instead of making a bubble, this is when it doesn't wet well, it makes a bubble. So this means that it's more that the ions are or the metal is more attached to the other atoms of the metal than to the electrolyte. In our case, it doesn't. The electrolyte doesn't make the metal doesn't make a bubble with electrolyte. So it wets very well the electrolyte. This means that the growing of the metal when you charge, because the metal grows. We have electrodes of metal. They grow when you charge, but they grow in just one dimension, not in 3 dimensions with branches. So if you don't form these branches and you just form another layer of material, there are no short circuits as well. So you eliminate not only the fact that you don't have a flammable liquid, but you also don't have the formation of these shorts, these short circuits.
So what
Plus,
you're saying, are they inherently safer? Inherently safer is what you're saying?
They are inherently safer.
Okay.
Plus, in these solid electrolytes where you have dipoles, you actually need the energy from room temperature to align the dipoles, because you have spontaneous polarization like in a ferroelectric material. So the energy from around you or room temperature actually helps aligning these dipoles. So it is used in that sense. So these batteries can work very well at 70 degrees or 100 or even 180 degrees C.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. That was a good answer.
Very well.
thorough answer.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they would love to talk about?
In general?
Yes.
Where do I begin?
At the beginning, and when you come to the end, stop.
Actually, no, I'm just kidding. I'm never that exciting.
Lies.
It was very interesting, your intervention about the magnetic field. So it's actually not going to flip, or are we just, the magnetic field is only going to flip in some...
Right. The main point of the story was that because they can do paleomagnetism, which I didn't really explain how that works, that's actually very intensive field work. They have to go out into the field, and they have to rocks, and they have to, it's very
cut cylinders, cut cylinders,
and they have to make a map.
In the mountains.
And they have to make a map of, and they have to of course fill in the blanks, because you could do one here, you do one here, and you got to put a curve, in your okay. So by the time they're doing all that, and you got to date the rock. So you're saying, okay, 49,000 years ago, the field was doing this, and they look at that, and they're comparing it to what's happening now, and they're like, well, that looks very. We know, because they know geologically, like I mentioned, when you're looking at the rocks and with the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, for example, you've got the stripes coming out, you've got reversals. So they date these. So now they have charts of this is when a reverse happened. They can go back and look and say, well, back in this time, we didn't have a reversal. And even though the magnetic field was doing this back then, similar to today, it didn't reverse. So we're learning more about how the fields actually behave. So that's the whole point of the story, is that we don't need to be so worried about a reversal, because initially, this is new science. It's only been around for 50 years. Going back 50 years, there was debate as to whether the magnetic field even flipped at all. American scientists especially were very much against plate tectonics. They thought Wegener, the guy who came up with it, was crazy. They thought he was a nut job. Continents can't move. They're made out of rocks. How can rocks move? That's nuts. So then when they first started scanning the ocean floor and making these maps, they were like, look at all these stripes and now we have all this data. So now we're going back into the field and making paleomagnetic maps where this is what the field looked like 49,000 years ago and whatever. It's really crazy. Now we can start looking at the history of the magnetic field. And so that's like, the science is advancing even farther now, past just the basic point of just knowing, well, it could flip and dealing with that. So now we're learning details about, okay, how does it exactly flip? What does it look like when it's going to flip? So what I mentioned is you have a flip, which it actually does completely go around, or you have an excursion where it starts to get all crazy. It starts actually in an excursion. You don't even have a north or a south, a well-defined north or south. It can just start. Everything just goes. If that ever happened, that would be really kind of scary, because like
even worse. That would be even worse than a flip.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a magnetic north anymore. It would just be kind of this way or that way, and then it kind of then it goes back again. How long does that last? I'm not sure. I didn't see that in the article, how long those excursions lasted. Probably, I'm sure on geologic time, it could last 1,000 years. I mean, that would be really crazy not to have a magnetic north for 1,000 years. Like, oh my goodness, what do we do,
And just like looking in the past few centuries, haven't they been able to connect like these crazy, not quite cataclysmic, but just these catastrophic weather events to like activity with our magnetic field and like just different, not necessarily switching maybe, but just like...
I don't know about magnetic, I don't know how much the magnetic field affects the weather.
Oh, it does quite a bit, yeah. Like especially when it comes to like, I believe it was almost like a mini contemporary like ice age in the, I want to say it was like either the late 1800s or the early 1900s.
Right, the mini ice age. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They were
Was that
able
linked to?
Yeah, they were able to kind of make a connection between, I think maybe I might be misremembering, but if I believe it, or was it?
Because that short a time ago, the rocks from that period, wouldn't they be like basically the peaks of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge right now? So, or would they be clearly delineated? This is what was happening precisely.
I don't think so. I think
1800s?
it was more like, it was just kind of like there could be a connection.
Okay.
And then so when they extrapolated that to like far, far beyond when we would be able to see like such evidence, then they're like, oh, that could be a plausible explanation.
Okay. I have not heard
I think
of it.
you are right. I think it does affect the storms, the sun storms and so on.
Exactly. It had to do with like interaction with like solar activity. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry. What were you going to say? I didn't want to interrupt you, Doctor.
No. The sun storms really affect our life here as well.
Yeah.
So I think you are right. I have seen also these shows that talk about those sunstorms and how they affect the life here on Earth.
They definitely affect the power grid. But the excursions that you were talking about, David, they sounded very much like a planet-wide almost sunspot.
Yeah.
Because the solar storms are tangling of the magnetic field localized on the sun, but it sounds kind of reminiscent of that. It gets a tangled kind of situation here on Earth.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
snaps itself back into place.
Yeah, the sun, they tighten up and wind up, and then they just go, you know.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that like a magnetic recombination or something different?
What was that?
Sorry,
Is that like
whip this out.
magnetic recombination, or is that a different process?
I think that might be a different process.
Okay.
I need to strengthen my electromagnetic know-how.
Yes.
Don't we all?
Oh, this is kind of an interesting question. Sorry, but I got to ask one more battery question. What does a fail? Oh, so this is from TWKD. To Wicked! Sorry. My apologies to Wicked. Sorry, but I got to ask one more battery question. What does a failed solid battery look like? What is its version of magic blue smoke?
That's a good question. I think it's a battery in which doesn't have that you charge and then you cannot extract any power or energy from it anymore. That's where they end. So here we just define 80% of their initial charge or the initial capacity, and in this case they will after a few cycles. Most of the batteries some of the solid batteries will not provide 80% of the initial capacity anymore. So that will not have any smoke. No, I'm sorry, no fantastic effects.
Okay.
No explosions.
That's great. No explosions. We don't want any explosions.
But sounds far less fantastic, or a lot more fantastic actually. But you just said that after just a few cycles, so right now solid state batteries don't have the rechargeability that lithium ions do?
No, not at all. We actually just published a paper where we show 23,000 cycles, which was very, very good. But this is not at all common in the solid state batteries because they don't have that capacitor part. This is mainly, we think, because of the capacitor characteristics and not because of the electrochemical characteristic as in a battery, more because it has the component of a capacitor. And we know the capacitors there are solid state capacitors. They were one of the first. And the capacitors can stand a lot of cycles, 100,000 and more. So that part in our batteries, I think we think, of course, this is research in progress, so we don't like to be very dogmatic about it, never. But we think that it's because of these capacitor part of our battery.
So it's just kind of greedy. It's holding on to that charge. After a certain point, it won't release it.
It's the problem with the solid state batteries is because the resistance in the electrolyte, the resistance to the diffusion of the ions through the electrolyte is very high. So a lot of energy is spent in that process of having the ions go from one electrode to the other. Plus, there are spurious reactions that occur at both electrodes. So at a certain time, these spurious reactions consume the ions that were free to move from one electrode to the other, and when they consume, they steal the capacity available, the initial capacity available in the cell, and that happens also in a lithium-ion cell, and that's why some the lithium-ion cells that in which you can that can go under 20,000 cycles. They are not charged to, for example, 4.3 volts. They are just charged to 2.5 volts or 3 volts, because they want to avoid these spurious reactions that happen with the electrolyte and the electrodes.
Okay.
So that you don't spend the ions in these reactions that need to be free to travel in the electrolyte. Diffuse.
All right. That sounds very, so you don't charge lithium ions to full capacity so that you don't waste the energy to get that electricity back out, right?
You actually use other kind of electrodes in which you never need, you cannot even charge to high voltage. You just use electrodes that only charge to 2.5 volts, so that you don't charge to the window of your electrolyte. Let's imagine that your electrolyte has a window of 4.3 volts. So if you charge very close to these 4.3 volts, what happens is that electrons coming from your negative electrode will diffuse through the electrolyte and start reacting with the electrolyte. And this was exactly what I said in the beginning of our talk, that we don't want electrons to go through the electrolyte. We want them to go through the external circuit to provide the power to our computer or our car.
Okay, cool.
So that's why you use other electrodes that don't allow this type of charge to high voltage. So that you can, but that's always the secret. The secret is not to charge to higher voltages. If you keep a certain your battery at 80% or 60%, 70% of the maximum voltage it can charge, you avoid these spurious reactions that also happen if you hit your cell phone. So you should not have your cell phone in the heat, because these spurious reactions are going to occur.
Yeah, so I was actually going to ask about the 80%. So I know that JPL, that's one of the ways they've had opportunity last for ever, is that they never discharge their batteries lower than 20%, and they never charge above 80%. So everyone, when on the tours, we would tell people that, oh, yeah, they run on lithium ions just like in your phone. And they're like, but they've lasted 13 years. Oh, my God. Yeah. So we have it from an expert. Don't overcharge your phone.
I know.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Or your computer. Of
Right?
course, we should have BMS, which are the battery management systems that should help us not to overcharge the cell phone. They actually do that. The cell phone or the car or the batteries in the car. These are the most complicated and expensive part of the battery because they have to control a lot of cells especially in these cars, these EV cars. So and they have to avoid thermal runaway. So that's not only you avoid an accident, but also you keep your cells, your batteries with for a longer time.
Excellent. All right, we do have another question from Sarge Enzyme. How heavy are these solid-state batteries compared to lithium-ion?
That's a very good question. In our case, the density of our electrolyte is very similar to the density of the organic liquid with the salt, plus the separator, because it has to have a separator. So it's, you just, in the case of the lithium ions, you have to have the separator and the electrolyte with the salt, the organic solvent with the salt. So the density is comparable. So they would not be heavier than the lithium ion cells. And plus, if they can store more in less volume, then you can make. They can make them smaller.
You definitely pitch it that way. We're making the amount of electricity that you can carry smaller. Or I should say, we're making more electricity in a smaller package.
Or the same size, but with more autonomy.
All right. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. That was a good one.
So, looks like we are done. I don't know how to sign off from After Dark. I'm going to say thank you for joining us.
You don't really have to sign off right After Dark. You just tell them,
Deuces.
we leave.
Bye-bye.
Go home.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can't stay here. Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you, Dr.
Elena.
Braga. You're amazing.
Yeah, that was really good.